Hello. Hi everyone. Good afternoon. We are starting the forum in another
Hello.
minute.
Hi
I would
everyone.
request
Good
everyone to be
afternoon.
seated, please. We are starting the forum in another minute. I would request everyone to be seated, please. Thank you so much. A very good afternoon to all esteemed guests, distinguished speakers and respected attendees. Thank you so much. It is an absolute honor to welcome you all to this prestigious gathering where we come together to celebrate and advance the spirit of research, innovation and academic excellence. Where we come together I am Riya Rajpal, manager of Outreach and Advocacy, Innovation and Academic Excellence, and your MC for the day. I am Riya Rajpal, at Springer Nature we believe in fostering meaningful interactions with the research your MC for the day. The Springer Nature we believe was conceived to maximize the face-to-face engagements with researchers. The Springer Nature Research to listen, was to learn, and to address the challenges you encounter in your research and publishing journey. To listen, to learn, together and to address the challenges to amplify your research in your research and publishing impact, and ensure that your work reaches a global audience. To amplify your research, help today at All India Institute of Medical Sciences that your work reaches a global one of the premier medical institutions. Today at All India Institute of Medical Nature India Research Conclave, one of the premier medical institutions, which marks the third edition for the Springer Nature India Research Conclave 2025, with a renewed commitment which marks the third to promote open access publishing, Springer Nature India Research integrity, with a renewed commitment to open access is not just a mode of publishing research, it's integrity that fosters greater transparency. Open access is not just a mode of publishing, it's a ensuring that research serves greater knowledge for all, collaboration and accessibility. As we embark on today's discussion and the exciting as a knowledge for all, I am reminded the words of Maria. As we embark on today's discussion and the exciting forum, one never notices what has been done. One can only see what remains to be done. One today we have gathered some of the brightest minds and the most esteemed leaders in the academia, research and policy making to share their experiences, insights and the vision of future research in India and beyond. In India, traditional lighting of the lamp is not just a gesture of formality, but a symbol of knowledge, wisdom and the removal of ignorance. To officially begin today's event, I would like to invite people from All India Institution of AIMS, Dr. Govind Makharia, Dr. Suresh Tandon, Dr. Varun Surya, Dr. Deepika Mishra, and from Springer Nature, Venkatesh Sarvasati, Frank Peters, to come up for the lighting of the lamp. Thank you, everyone. I am delighted to introduce the very first speaker of the day, Dr. Deepika Mishra, a professor at the Division of Oral Pathology and Microbiology at AIMS, New Delhi. Dr. Mishra is a very well-respected name in her field, known not only for her contribution to research and education, but also for her commitment to mentoring the next generation of scientists and healthcare professionals. Without further delay, please join me in welcoming Dr. Deepika Mishra.
Thank you, Riya. So good afternoon, esteemed guests, distinguished speakers, 2025. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Deepika, for such a warm welcome. It's a real pleasure to be here at AIMS. Next speaker, we have Mr. Venkatesh Sarvasiddhi, who is the Managing Director of Springer Nature India Limited, leading the company's India operations and promoting open science and technology. He previously held senior roles at the National Skills Development Corporation, shaping digital skills and CSR initiatives. He has also spent 10 years at Microsoft, focusing on developer ecosystems and innovation centers. To provide us with an introduction to the forum and the objectives, I would like to invite Mr. Venkatesh Sarvasiddhi. Thank you.
Thank you, Ria. And good afternoon, everyone. First of all the dignitaries who are present, special thanks to the Dr. M. Srinivas, the Director of All India Institute of Medical Science, for his kind support and helping us organize this. This is the second in a row after the India Research Tour, bus tour part of it, which was held. So India Research Conclave is actually an event which we do before the bus tour to kick off the national-wide campaign of connecting with research communities. And this time we are fortunate. Last year we did this in Bhubaneswar in Orissa. This time it's a great opportunity for us at Springer Nature to host this event at All India Institute of Medical Science, to bring in the key objective of how do we reach out to our communities, our community of researchers, academicians, policymakers, discuss various interesting aspects what are happening in the research ecosystem globally. How do we translate that, whether it's AI, whether it's technology, whether it's diversity in research, or one of the key themes what we focus on this year is on research integrity. So today I'm joined by many people who are from different institutions, apart from AIMS, who come from engineering, social sciences, management, economics, and different schools. So who are basically here. Thank you all. And I would also love to thank the presence of Dr. Govind Makaria ji. His support is instrumental. He leads the research at AIMS, and it's been second time in the last 7-8 months. Again, we are back to this institution, sir. Thank you so much for your support in making this. And we'll be shortly be joined by the government officials, Shri P.K. Banerjee ji, who's an instrumental from the Ministry of Education, Joint Secretary, Dr. Dhananjay from the ICSSR, who was with us last year in driving the India Research Tour, spread across 10 states and actively supporting us from the ministry. He's the Member Secretary of Indian Council for Social Science and Research under the Ministry of Education. We'll also be joined shortly by Dr. B.N. Gangadharji, the Chairman for National Medical Commission, and he's on the way and he can join sometime, stuck in traffic. Last but not the least, all my leadership team, starting from Frank, Harsh, Stephen, Joyce, and many others who has joined us today. And key panelists, who are in women in research, a lot of interesting professors and their thoughts we would love to hear. We also have Dr. Ananya, we have, the Vice Chancellor of Ashoka University, Dr. Shashank from Niti Aayog, and many more who will be joining us in one panel which talks about bridging the academic and research gap and what is it we can do as institutions coming together. One thing I always feel pride in coming to this institution, this is an institution we truly respect and love. Not just for the sake of saying, because India, if at all there's one institution which stood really in making what India is, offering healthcare solutions and saving many lives, diagnosing many areas of health across India. If you ask me to do survey, I think everybody would count and vote for All India Institute of Medical Science. In fact, for all the great work doctors do, in fact, this would be at least on an average, they're handling more than 100 cases in a day, which is truly unbelievable. In fact, by people from Germany, Netherlands, and US, they're surprised to hear the kind of a number. In spite of that, they again contribute to research and solving complex issues. Each one of you know the value and importance being an Indian citizen of AIMS. I would request all of you to give a standing ovation for the great work doctors in this hospital are making this country a big opportunity, and big round of applause for all of them. It's a pride, it's a prestige for us, it's a true reflection of what India is. Thank you so much for all your efforts in making this. Thank you so much. Without taking much time, I would give it back to Ria for you to continue the rest of the thing. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Sarvasiddhi, for outlining the visions and goals of this forum. As we move forward, we are privileged to hear from a distinguished lineup of keynote speakers who will share their insights on strengthening India's research ecosystem. We now have Professor Dr. Govind K. Makaria, is a professor in the Department of Gastroenterology and Human Nutrition at the All India Institution of AIMS, New Delhi. He received training from the prestigious Postgraduate Institution of Medical Education and Research, PGIMR, Chandigarh, India. He has published around 300 plus articles in index journals, 42 book chapters, and edited multiple handbooks. He now has a net index of 52, and his publication has been cited 11,000 times. He has been listed amongst the top 2% of research scientists globally in the year 2021. I would now invite Sir to please come here, deliver the keynote address. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Ria, and welcome the leadership of Nature Springer, all of you. Thank you for coming to AIMS. I think it's an honor that you visit AIMS at second occasion this year. Good afternoon, everyone. And I see a lot of young colleagues out here, so welcome all of you. So what the focus today is about what the research in our country. I'll take it to only health research related some specific comments, what's happening in our country and how we should how we should go forward. So I take into 4 sections. What are the publications in health sciences and what is the relevance, global ranking of our institutions, a SWOT analysis of what are we doing and what we should do, and lastly, what the way forward. Coming first to publications and relevance. In publications, you know that whatever we do, we need to publish it. Because whatever we knowledge acquire, it has to be communicated to all the people around the world. And how are we doing there? There's 2 ways. One is qualitative and quantitative. Number and how they are. So first, numbers. So this is data from National Science Foundation. I have many databases, but I took this data which is recent from National Science Foundation in the US. And as a scopus, there are about 44 million articles published in 2022. Of those, let's focus on articles published in 2022, about 3.3 million articles published. Of all three, science and engineering all together. Those, certainly US has high influence, but India and China are also coming. China is ahead of our country. So what look at trend of this publication? The trend is what is the trend is now increasing, certainly in Western world, but also in those economies which are middle income or high middle income, the number of publications are also increasing from these nations. Furthermore, if you look at the real number of terms, we find that within the last 10 years, the number of publications from India has increased markedly. That's a good thing, that numbers are increasing. And India has become the 3rd country of having largest number of publications in all streams of all science and engineering. What stream are they publishing? And if you look at the data, in the United States, almost 30% of publications are health science related, compared to India, which is about 15%, and 10% more on other life sciences. So our contribution is more towards chemistry and computer and information technology. But health sciences, we are 50% all publication comes there. And say looking at what science you do, it all depends upon how much collaboration you have. The science is about cross talk and having a application for people with different specialty or different expertise, then you do better science. And look at that, again, India is not doing so well, but again, it's rising in that regards. Again, AI, a lot of work going on around the world, and in our country, in India, also there is a lot of AI-related publications. But look at this, the node has not many connections. So our work on AI is still limited to India. They don't have any collaboration around the world. Coming to this about quantity, that we are doing quite a good number of publications. But what is the quality of that work? And there, if you look at one index is that what do we publish? There are 40,000 journals overall. And what do you publish? Where are you published? And look at the one index is that what are the articles you publish in big journals of repute. And that's what we take a top 1% journal. In that regards, in the US, is about 2% of articles are in that top 2% journals, about top 1% journals. But in India, we are much lower. So it means of 200 articles published, only one is in that top 1% journal. So again, of 200 articles, one article is in the top 1% journal. As we said, we are third in number in terms of quantity, but when it comes to quality and citation, being cited, our articles being cited is a 9th number. Again, we need to do better out here. Simply means that while we achieve quantity, but we have to focus on quality of work. So numbers are rising, we have to build up our impact on what we do. And I think this is the mantra I believe that we must know what we do is what we're doing. Coming to global ranking. So this is what reflects into the global ranking of our universities. We know that our universities in terms of engineering are doing good. They are in top 100, but look at medical institutions, we are not in top 100 or top 200 overall. So our medical health science research is much behind. And how global ranking is done? It's done basically on few parameters. Another parameter is academic reputation. And how it comes? It comes because of the kind of article you publish, how much impact you have, and also how many people in your country are Nobel awardees, and how many people in your country publish in high-tech like science and nature. So those where we are not there. Therefore, our global ranking of our medical universities is not high, and we need to focus on that. Coming to 2 other aspects, the SWOT analysis. SWOT is strength, weakness, opportunity, and threats of Indian science, and also way forward. Look at strength. I think, as all of you agree, especially with these younger ones, there's an air of motivation, inspiration area. Our information technology is doing fantastic, and all young people are doing their own business. They're starting their own business. A lot of unicorns done by young people. So there's a lot of inspiration happening that my country should rise, my publications should do better, and that's what is the air. So that's the strongest strength that a lot of people are inspired to do well. We also have an infrastructure. The main institutions are fantastic. The community scientists and military scientists are funding is getting better. So these are the strength of Indian research, especially I'm talking about health sciences. But there are also weaknesses. And the most important weakness is our mindset. Most of us are still in project mode, 3 years, 5 years, not question mode, not the mission mode. And therefore, most work which is done is like a project mode. You do something, you create a knowledge dot somewhere, but it doesn't connect with the whole story. Since you have a story, therefore, they are just a knowledge, but they may not be much meaningful. We need to change that mindset. The small project gives you publication, and that's your gratification. Most scientists see happiness in publishing an article, but article of value is probably more relevant. Most research in this country are mostly done by, mostly industry initiated, lack of review and reward, lack of collaboration. I know the collaboration is increasing now, but it's not to the standard that we do a good science. And also we have a restrictive collaboration of industry. That whatever you do in your labs, stay in the lab because they don't go forward to make a product, which is one transformation required in our country. So what are the opportunities? Opportunities is to convert the concept of project model to ambitious one. The whole group of people think that I have to produce a vaccine for virus A or B. That's the mission. And it might include multiple projects. That's what we look forward. At the same time, we have to have more collaboration with private and government agencies, not only local, but also international. And also need to have more funding required. The funding is very, very important to do good science. We see a lot of potential because of now almost 800 medical institutions in our country, only 5% produce paper, more than 100 paper per year. And only 50 institutions do this. It is a huge opportunity. If you inspire them and give them infrastructure, there's a huge potential in India to enhance our research scope. Also want to highlight another point, since there are a lot of young people out here, is that we all know, since I'm hearing for the last 40 years of my life that India is a middle-income country. But in 40 years, we have done wonderful things in different areas. But still, we are middle-income country. And why it is so? I think this is worth thinking. Why after 50 years, we are still a middle income country. And it's all because of this trap that's called middle income trap. That most countries here, they are trapped in the middle income trap. What the reason for that? If you look at the reason for the middle income trap, most of these countries are focused on science and innovation, IT solutions and export, because they will bring more resources to your country, and you will come out of the middle income trap. I think this again was the point that science and technology has to enhance in our country. So what are the threats? Threats again is a mindset. Mindset for most people still is a project mode. We have to change to mission mode. And also we need to have a more crosstalk. It's still limited. We need to work on that. And also we need to have a better financial system. So focal point, ultimately the focal point is that we need to understand why we do what we do. This is a simple concept. Why we do what we do. Why we do what we do. We must know what we're doing is meaningful. As the concept comes to your mind, you start thinking much better. And therefore, we have to have a country question, a question which, like we had a COVID vaccine, we thought about it and we made it. And it was so gratifying and so transformative. Simply thinking about that one question, which is big question, and working around it through collaboration. And also, and so what is the way forward? Way forward, again, big question, big answer, you get a big publication. You get an academic reputation. Your ranking in university will go high. Creating infrastructure. To do big questions,
I would like to talk about the fact that we are people's business and how we develop relationships with our communities. And finally, which is important for us, yes, we are a business, but I think more importantly, we know that we have a place on planet Earth. We have done so for the last 180 years, and we want to keep doing that going forward. On the next slide, you can see some numbers for Springer Nature. Today, I heard that here, a doctor can do about 100 and maybe even 150, and if he doesn't take a lunch break, 200 patients a day. That's a lot. My sister, she's a professor in oncology, breast cancer. My daughter as well, and if I tell them that this is the number of visits they have to do at the day, I think they will be scared. But just to give maybe some facts about Springer Nature, we do 2.3 million submissions a year. Now, we started talking about what that means in a day. It means about 7,000 articles get submitted to Springer Nature every day. And we publish about 1,500 articles every day, 1500. Total revenues is about 1.9 billion. We have about 9,000 colleagues across the world. We work with an external network, and you know, some of the people here in the room are part of that network of about 175,000 external editors. We publish about 3,000 journals, so that's a lot. When my daughter published her first article, I was just telling that. She was proud and she came to me and she said, I've published my first article. And I said, so in which journal? She said, in this journal. And I said, who is the publisher? And then she looked at me and said, Dad, you don't know if it's your journal? I said, no, we published 3,000 and I don't know all the journals. And I think, typically authors and scientists don't live in the world of publishers. They live in the world of individual journals. Anyway, a couple of facts about Springer Nature. Let's move on to the next slide. We're a mission-driven organization. We feel what we do matters. We want to help share trusted knowledge between scientists and researchers to help to find solutions to the world's biggest problems. Quality is important for us, and I will talk about why research integrity is so much at the heart of Springer Nature. Technology is part of our DNA. People look at us and think, you're a publisher, but actually, if you look under the hood, we're actually a technology company. About a third of the people working at Springer Nature is actually working in technology functions. And last but not least, I think the brands that we have, Nature, of course, but also Springer, are essentially, let's say, the elements that give us the position that we have in our market. So if you look at our strategy, unfortunately, it's always nice to have things simple, so big questions, big funding. I will not forget that. But I try to keep things simple as well. And if you look at what is really the core of the strategy of Springer Nature, it's essentially 4 things. Number 1 is continue to drive the transition towards open access. Is everybody here in this room familiar with open access? Everybody says yes, and then if I say, is everybody not familiar with open access, probably also everybody says yes. But essentially, open access means that instead of having to pay a subscription fee to see the article, you publish it. Open access means that you actually pay a publishing fee, so the author pays for the article to be open access. At Springer Nature, about half of the articles that we published last year, which is roughly 500,000 articles, half of those were actually already open access. So half of the articles that we have published last year were open access. I'll talk about why that is important. Second key strategy for us is artificial intelligence. Why is artificial intelligence so important for us? Because technology and technological progress is really at the core of Springer Nature. Essentially, we know that researchers, they want to get published, true, but they don't like to write and they don't like to read. So what do we do with technology? We try to make the publication process as simple and as easy as possible. Third, we're a people's business. We exist because of the relationships our employees have within the community, whether it's with librarians, whether it's with state officials, whether it's our publishers having relationships with authors, editors, or reviewers. We are a people's business, and that's why making sure that Springer Nature is a great place to work is actually part of our strategy. And last but not least, we hope that this strategy, these three elements will lead to, let's say, a better company, not only in terms of financial performance, but also making sure that we act responsibly on planet Earth. I'll give a couple of points on each of those. So open access, why have we as Springer Nature embraced open access? As I mentioned earlier, about half of the articles that we publish are open access. And what we have seen is that articles that are published in a journal, if they are open access, they get 6 times more downloads. So if you have published an article at Springer Nature and you have seen your usage statistics, the difference between open access and subscription is 6 times. So as a researcher, you get 6 times more visibility. Second, which is also important, we talked about quality, impact factors. What we see is that on average, open access articles get 1.5 times higher impact factor. So it also leads to more visibility, more citations. And last but not least, it also leads to more public awareness, which we use with a metric called altmetrics, but it means essentially that you get 4 times as much public awareness. We believe it's also good for Springer Nature because essentially it aligns the value that we provide, publishing articles, with the revenues that we generate. We've been a pioneer in open access. We had the first full open access brand, BMC. We have the largest open access journal, Scientific Reports, and we also have the journal with the highest quality, which is Nature Communications. So 50% of the articles that we publish are already open access, and we have really embraced open access as the right business model for this industry. Now, a couple of additional statistics. You can see that we have about 600 journals in open access. As I mentioned earlier, with scientific reports in the middle, you can see that we have published 30,000 articles. What is also important, because we know that not everybody can afford an APC, so essentially that's the publishing fee per article you pay. So we actually, on an annual basis, waive approximately 34 million of APCs every year. And in terms of quality of our open access portfolio, the 600 journals, it's actually the highest in the world, with about an average of 6 citations per article. So that's the story about open access, and we hope that also in India we can work with the various communities to drive open access going forward. We often get the question, so if you pay to get published, does that mean that it's lower quality, or is that easier to get published open access? The answer is no. The publishing process for open access for a subscription is completely the same. There's no difference. Sometimes people think like, I don't want to publish open access because that might be lower quality. I pay myself into getting published. The reality is it's exactly the same as in a subscription journal. Actually, in both, our accept rate is kind of the same across the different portfolios. Yeah, so that's strategy number 1. Strategy number 2 is technology, artificial intelligence. Now, if you think about Springer Nature, think about a company that connects 175,000 external editors through 3,000 journals, close to 2 million peer reviewers, publishing 500,000 articles a year, 2.3 million submissions. So we do, let's say, global networked information processing at scale. And that's, of course, where AI shines. So what we have done is we have actually developed modules across the whole publication process between, let's say, submitting an article versus reviewing an article versus finally publishing an article. And we have developed AI modules across the whole publication process. So we have, for instance, a tool called T-Rex that actually helps you, once you got rejected in one journal, it gives you a recommendation for another journal. We have a tool called the Review Finder, where essentially we match the footprint or the fingerprint of an article with, let's say, profiles of reviewers, and then actually you get a better match. Because at the end, why do people want to review? They only want to review articles which they think are really interesting for them. So the better we can make that match, the better. Research integrity, I'm not going to talk a lot about it because I know Stephen is going to talk about it, but a third of all the initiatives that we do around AI are all focused on research integrity. And it's almost like a weapons race. We invest, of course, bad actors invest as well, but we're constantly launching new tools and new mechanisms to actually make sure that we can really trust the articles that we publish. So for us, quite important. That's actually what the next page says as well. Research integrity is really at our core. Just to put things a little bit in perspective, we have a dedicated team of about 50 to 75 people who are working on research integrity. We have 300 additional people that are actually sitting in other functions that also work on research integrity. So it's really at our core, and I think that's really something that, if you look at this industry 5 or 10 years ago, it was less of a problem. Today, of course, it has actually grown a little bit bigger, and we are investing quite significantly in that area. Now let's move to the people part of Springer Nature. Our employees are really our key asset, together with our brands. If you look at Springer Nature, we're actually quite diversified. About 50% of our management board is women versus men. And if you look at the top 3 tiers, so the top 3 leadership levels of the company, we're also quite diversified. I think what is actually interesting to know, which country do you think has the most employees for Springer Nature? That's difficult. Yeah, okay. Asking 200 people is, who thinks the US is the most important base for employees for Springer Nature? Can you raise your hands? The US? Only 1. 2. Sorry, that's wrong. Europe, just gathering everything. Europe, no? India. Actually, India is the most, we have most people here actually in India. So our Pune office is actually our largest location. It's close to 1,800 people that actually work for us in Pune, and they work across all functions. We have actually a lot of managers sitting in India that manage people outside of India. So we're actually, I would say, quite a happy part of India research. And I think we actually, among the research publishers, have the strongest employee base in Pune, but also here in Delhi. Actually, our education business, Macmillan, I think a lot of people here in the room probably grew up with Macmillan books. We have about 500 colleagues based in India on our under the Macmillan brand. So what do those people do that we have? Well, basically, they keep and develop relationships with our communities through various different things. We have research advisory councils. We have, of course, we do the India Research Tour, and it will start again this year, later in the year. We've done that now for 2 years in a row, so this will be the 3rd time. You know, we organize events, so we really, for us, it's really important to be part of the global research community. I'm speeding up a little bit, being 10 minutes behind. So what does that mean? If I look at, yeah, I think we can probably skip that. Sorry, yeah, no, that's fine. Yeah, sorry, yeah. So if we look at Springer Nature, what does it mean for us to be, let's say, to grow responsibly? It means that we want to give maximum visibility to research that is related to the SDGs. And I think it's interesting, if you look at the number of articles that we published over the last 5 years directly related to the Sustainable Development Goals of the United Nations, it's about 1 million articles. So it's really a big number. Second, people, yes, we want to make sure that we work, you know, that we have, let's say, a diverse team internally in Springer Nature, but we also want to make sure that the communities that we serve are also diverse. So making sure that, for instance, one of the big challenges that we have is if we want to grow quality of Indian research, we need to make sure that we get more reviewers from India, that we get more editorial board members from India on our journals to make sure that really, let's say, you know, India is well represented throughout the communities that we work. And last but not least, of course, we're all living on planet Earth, and we want to make sure that planet Earth is also there for you guys. You know, I'm like the old guy here, so together with Stephen, I can say that, Stephen as well. And we want to make sure that, you know, when we leave, happily going up or wherever you believe that we will be going once our life on planet Earth is done, we want to make sure that you guys have a good planet as well. And at least at Springer Nature, it means that we want to be carbon neutral, completely carbon neutral by 2040. So maybe a couple of words about India, and I don't want to say too much because then Joyce will kill me tonight in the hotel, because she's going to talk about that later. But as I mentioned earlier, you know, if you look at Springer Nature and India, about 25% of our people in research are actually based in India. So if, I know that most people here in this room probably want to pursue a career in research, but actually a career in publishing, I don't want to steal any people away from you guys, but it's actually quite a nice and attractive career path as well. 25% of the staff that we have is actually sitting in India. ONOS, which is an initiative here in India, and I think I'm sure later there will be more said about that as well. We're part of ONOS as well, and we're very happy that it leads to, let's say, better access to research content throughout all academic institutions in India. And we're very happy to participate, ONOS. Maybe last, I would like to say whether it's drawing attention to open science and open access publishing and how it can better support researchers or creating awareness about ethical research and use of AI, our initiatives are aimed at progressing the transition to open access. That's really important for us. In fact, our pioneering transformative agreements, and transformative agreements is essentially where we take subscription content, subscription agreements, and we move them into open access, are helping actually to make the shift to OA simple. And I'm very happy to share that while we are part of the government of India's ONOS initiative, which provides read access to to high-quality international research content. We're also collaborating with many institutions and universities in the country to propel open access movement through our fully open access agreement. So we actually also have agreements with open access to do open access publishing. So that's, I think, a couple of words of what we're doing. I know it was a bit of a roller coaster, touching upon various things of Springer Nature, but I hope you get a bit of a sense of what's going on behind the scenes of Springer Nature. And with that, I just wish you a lovely continuation of today. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Frank, for bringing in the high energy and discussing on important issues like open access and research integrity. I would now request Dr. Govind Makharia ji to please hand over a memento to Frank, CEO, Springer Nature. Thank you, everyone. Next, we have Shri P.K. Banerjee as the next speaker. He is a 1993 batch officer of the Indian Statistical Services. In August 2021, he was appointed as a Joint Secretary in the Department of Higher Education. In his role, his responsibilities include overseeing matters related to management, minorities, scholarships, deemed universities, and research councils. His career reflects his extensive experience in statistical systems and administration, contributing to his current role in the Department of Higher Education. Now, I would like to welcome Shri P.K. Banerjee, sir, to please deliver his keynote address.
So how do I come to this particular? Okay, good afternoon to all of you. I'm thankful to AIMS, Springer Nature, ICSSR. ICSSR is, of course, a part of Department of Higher Education for organizing this particular, the first part of the research conclave, I must say. In the opening remarks, it must have been told I was a bit late. I missed that. 2 years ago, with Springer Nature, Department of Higher Education started this research conclave initiative. What we do is that we organize a sort of bus journey or some such journey. We move from institution to institution, take a particular theme, and try to inform as many researchers as possible, including the students. What we are trying to do and what is our focus in recent future. So this is one such initiative, One Nation, One Subscription. It is not a Ministry of Education or Department of Higher Education. In one of the, it is one of its kind in the entire world now. One of a kind even in India, where 10 to 15 ministries together, they came together, they negotiated with all the leading publishers, created a system which will be applicable for all the higher education institutions of entire central government as well as state government. So I would like to tell about this particular thing. I thought this is a good opportunity to at least apprise you and maybe through you to your friends, colleagues, seniors, juniors, maybe in all the WhatsApp groups where you are involved. So this is the, I would say, small history. In 15th August 2022, Independence Day speech of our Prime Minister, a particular term, Joy Anusandhan, was added. You all know probably that the other things. So I will not go into that. So after that, the discussion regarding how we can increase access to the materials which our researchers want. That started. It started with a meeting under chairmanship of Cabinet Secretary. Then a small committee was formed. Secretary Science and Technology, Secretary Higher Education, Secretary Health and Family Welfare, all of them were involved in that. The chairmanship was from the Office of the Principal Scientific Advisor of Government of India. And then in November 2024, finally, almost after 2 years of discussion, negotiation, etc., this particular scheme, One Nation, One Subscription, was launched. So the scheme, what does it give? It gives scholarly research articles, journal publications, all the students, faculty of all the central government and state government institutions will be able to access. Now, how the access will come? In AIMS, already there was some consortia, and they were doing this for the students of AIMS. But even within AIMS, if you see, AIMS Delhi had a certain set of journal subscription. You go for the other AIMS, they had a different set of journal subscription. Delhi was probably having something like 3,000 odd journals, whereas you go for smaller AIMS, even Rishikesh or Kollani or other places, it was only around 300, 400, 500, depending on whatever little budget that AIMS was having. The smaller AIMS, some of them actually became a part of the ARMET consortia, and through them they were accessing it because their budgets were limited. So now with this ONOS scheme, what we are trying to do is, these are the 30 publishers who actually agreed to be a part of One Nation, One Subscription. And here if you see in this list, you will find, at least with respect to medical, you have both Springer Nature at serial number 14, Elsevier, who published Lancet at serial number 26. Then you have BMJ at serial number 12. Wiley, Taylor and Francis, you already know perhaps. Then Lipitcon Williams, that is at serial number 9. A lot of others, Cold Spring Harbor, or all the names are quite well known. Those who are interested in computer science related things, IEEE is there. So what we are doing in ONOS is, all these 30 publishers who are publishing, whatever journals they publish, be it behind paywall or be it open access, everything will be available to all the faculty, researchers, as well as students, and nobody will have to separately pay anything for it. The payment is being done centrally by Government of India. So that is the situation. So if you just compare what is the situation before ONOS and after ONOS. So earlier, even for central government, 10 different library consortia they used to manage. And then state government institutions, they used to pay on their own. We all know state government budgets are highly constrained. So many of the state government institutions, actually they were not subscribing to anything. Or maybe subscribing in a different way. Whosoever knows those other websites, so here probably we should not name them, but they were accessing via that. Access of journal was highly discipline specific, and then about 55 lakh users were there for 2,300 institution, and around 850 crore annual outlay was there. Now the present situation is that a single consortia, it is not only in the beginning, for 3 years it is being done. The agreement with the publishers to begin with is for 3 years, so that we can know what exactly can be the usage, and then we can decide what will be the next course of action for Government of India. For state government institutions, there is no separate payment. Central government is paying for everybody together. And all journals is for all users. So whatever in the first two, before me, there was one particular term used, crosstalk. And in National Education Program, National Education Policy 2020, we have used a term multidisciplinary research. So both these things, we believe, at least we are trying to democratize the thing, the access is available, and now it is on all of you to make use and do it as much as possible. Then number of users, we expect around 1.8 crore, that is faculty, students put together, and around 6,300 institutions we have targeted, and we hope that it will reach to around 7,000 before we close the year. Around 13,000 journals will be available for everybody. Central government is paying, in total the outlay for ONOS is 1,800 crore. It is not only for the journal subscription, one part is being given for the article processing charges also, which in the previous talk it was there. So we also have, but although we have not finalized the methodology, but that is under active consultation now. With all this, the average cost per institution as well as average cost per user has come down significantly. You can see from 1,500 rupees on an average per user, now it is around 1,000 rupees. And the present status and expectations are that we already have that portal. If you, you can check on your mobile also now. The portal is live. Then the publishers, with all the 30 publishers, our agreement, payment, those formalities are already over. And the publishers, some of them have already set up access, and some are still in the process of setting up access, in the sense that there are certain institutions, the large institutions, who want to get IP-based access, so that IP setting is to be done both at institution end as well as in the publisher end. So some of the smaller publishers, they are taking still a little bit of time. But if somebody is not having, in InflibNet, we have something called in-fed access management. So via that access management, the smaller institutions, they simply create their own user ID password, and via that they can access InFed and get access to all the journals. The one part is important, active AISHE code. You perhaps know that Department of Higher Education does a All India Survey of Higher Education, and if some institution is found that it is inactive in that survey, then we are not providing access till it becomes active. So if there are smaller institutions who are inactive, we are requesting them to becoming active, and then only we provide them the access. And for the R&D institutions, there was a challenge because they were not a part of All India Survey of Higher. They didn't have any student like CSIR labs or some Department of Atomic Energy lab, ISRO lab, DRDO lab. They are there. They don't have separate students. So a special facility has been created for R&D institutions, and almost 200 R&D institutions in central government have already registered and getting access to that. Now, in this, the only thing which I would like to say, probably the institution level thing has already been set up, but for every student, there is a facility to have also off-campus access in ONOS. The user ID password-based access anywhere in India one can use. And if some of you are not having that, please impress upon the institution in the library mechanism so that each of you get that user ID password created and you start using ONOS for this. Otherwise, that is how I think we can justify the spending. Thank you.
Thank you so much, sir, for highlighting on the ONOS initiatives. What's the present status and how are we looking ahead in the future? I would now request Frank, our CEO at Springer Nature, and Mr. Stephen Inchcombe, President Research at Springer Nature, to please hand over the memento to Shri P.K. Banerjee ji. Thank you, everyone. Next, we have Dr. B.N. Gangadhar, MD, who was a former director of NIMHANS, which is the National Institution of Mental Health and Neurosciences in Bangalore, one of the premier institutions on psychiatry. He is currently affiliated with the National Medical Commission, requesting you, sir, to please come up and address the audience.
I don't have slides. Having gotten into an administrative job from being an academic person, I have not had much opportunity to prepare the slides now. Anyway, that's a different issue. Thank you for inviting me to this event and letting me share some observations from the medical education perspective. I now being a regulator of the medical education in the country, I thought I will share a couple of observations with respect to research, publication and education. One of the common statements that I hear is researching would take away my time in clinical service, and somewhere there is a saying that research and service or research and clinical skills are perhaps antithetical. It is not really so. I always want to keep saying this, and I have said it in many times, that a good researcher would always be a good clinician. Whether a good clinician is always a researcher is eminently possible, but there are sometimes there are going to be some limitations with respect to time and other issues. But being a good researcher would make you also a good clinician. Having said this, how does it translate into our teaching and mandating what a student should learn? Of course, we know that those of you who come from different medical colleges, faculty in different medical colleges might know that there is a mandate that this program on research methodology, which is made by the Indian Council of Medical Research, is now mandated to every PG student. And all the faculty are also expected to have undergone this process, so that will give them a opportunity to be familiar with research methods and be motivated to publish. At the same time, the theses which we have mandated in the postgraduate studies is something that is very important, and this is taken seriously, and there are of course students who publish it. I'll come to some figures with respect to what happens to the thesis and with respect to its publication. We also emphasize that publication is necessary for promotions in the faculty level. It's a different issue as to what publications happen from them and what is the impact factor of those publications and so on and so forth. But the point is, the medical education has made sure that research is inseparable from the education part of the training part of the curriculum, which may include of various subjects, various skills and so on. But research has to be an ingrained part of it. How does this translate into publication? This is an issue which has always bugged us. I don't want to quote facts and figures of the publication in medical sciences in our country. That is something that you might already know. But the fact is that we have at any given point of time about 75,000 postgraduate students and close to about 2.5 lakh faculty who are there in the medical colleges, which will amount to almost about 3 to 3.5 lakhs of potential researcher publishers. In other words, those research publications could come from these 3 lakh odd people. And assuming that every PG, since keeps changing every year, that means 75,000 PGs leave every year, the next new 75,000 come and so on, you would expect close to, and also the teachers who are going for a promotion after 3 years need to have 3 publications. And after the level of professor, of course, there is no evaluation, but I assume that the trend of publication will continue, which means from the medical colleges, you would expect about 3.5 lakh publications annually. This is something that simple arithmetic, but always arithmetic doesn't follow. I was looking up the publications that happen from the PG researchers. I was looking at my own, having guided close to about 25 odd MD students. I looked at whether all MD theses really got converted into publication. If you go by numbers, of course, there were as many as about 50 publications from all these 25 dissertations, but it's true also about 25% of the dissertations don't reach a publishable end of the cycle. For various reasons, the students don't get motivated, and we also lose interest, the time passes, various reasons. I'm sure, having come from NIMANS, which is considered to be one of the premier institutes in psychiatry and neurosciences, if I have seen about 25% of my own students' publications, theses haven't reached publication, these numbers would be much higher in many other centers. Acceptable though. But nonetheless, we need to motivate our own students to take their thesis work to a logical end, which is not just getting their degree, but also making sure that it gets published. And it is here the role of teachers, the role of guides become very important. But for some reason or other, this has not been pressed from the National Medical Commission point of view, or perhaps the MCI point of view earlier. MCI, of course, used to facilitate continued professional development, CME funding, but research itself was not an area where we funded. Thanks to Indian Council of Medical Research, funding has come from many angles. The medical research units have been established in many medical colleges and medical institutions, who again make sure they keep driving the issue of making students publish. And more importantly, in the last maybe, although I don't come from an undergraduate medical college, I know that undergraduate students are also motivated. ICMR gives them a grant to further some research agenda, research question, and many UG students have availed this. And I must also mention an example of one UG student who was attracted to doing something as part of this ICMR small grant. Although it is not a big grant, for a UG, boasting that I have got a ICMR grant was a big thing, and that somehow prompted this person. During his undergraduate days, he was able to publish as many as about 12 publications, doing summer work in different medical colleges and different institutions with different guides. And so much so that medical college set up what is called as the best researcher award for during their convocation or in the graduation day. So he received it. So I believe this is possible to motivate students right from the undergraduate days, and it did actually happen in this example, and ICMR must be thanked that this funding has been possible. Of course, research funding is also possible to postgraduate students for their MD and MS, DM research dissertations as well. But I thought motivating students from the undergraduate level to conduct some research has been quite rewarding, and where people have stuck to it have been continuously been, for example, the student whom I was referring to was able to publish in the Nature journal itself as another review articles on cannabis, and I was quite impressed that at that young age people can be driven to do research and actually publish research as well. So having said these 3-4 things about publication from a medical education point of view, I must thank this ONOS system. In fact, last year I was talking to Dr. Srinivas, who is the head of the National Medical Library. In the National Medical Commission, we mandate that every institution should have a library. And a library, of course, we have also prescribed so many journals and so many books have to be kept. But this concept of ONOS has attracted me, and I have requested Dr. Srinivas, when he was the secretary at the National Medical Commission, to come up with a capsule for a medical college. What are all the things that whether this is enough or should we add some more, should books be listed, and how to make sure that every student gets the access. What is important is the students get access to the latest edition of the textbook. I visited some medical college libraries. It generally happens that the older editions of the textbooks will not be dispensed away and they will be sitting in the library, hardly ever used. The library is full of some of the older edition books, but if this ONOS arrangement, they will have access to a newer edition books. So this is something that I have impressed upon our colleague to come out with a capsule that we can mandate all colleges to be members of this ONOS system, or whichever may be the system we will come up with, getting access to not just the research articles, research journals, but also the books, which will be very helpful to the then the last but not the least important point, which I thought I will stop here, is some of the metrics of research publications. This is like we always keep in the corridors, keep saying publication is not a research, or research need not always end up in a publication. We keep arguing on these matters on various counts, sometimes cynically and sometimes in a different way, that the metrics of a publication is more important than the numbers of publication, which is true, I do agree, but this is something that we also have to facilitate students to know. In fact, the first time I was surprised by this student whose example I was saying was one of the guides, not guides, mentors to him, and he were writing the paper and they showed me the manuscript and they were about to be sending it, and then this boy insisted, no sir, that we should send it to this journal which has a higher impact factor than the other journal. So I have been telling, so this discussion went on. So this awareness about various metrics and to make sure that we remain competitively in the research field is again something that is very important. I feel that this is something that we should educate our students and also our postgraduates. But at the end, no research is complete if that has not come to the application field in our clinical practice or wherever maybe we are researching. How does this happen is something that we should constantly guard. Otherwise, we keep doing research, it is cited everywhere, published in a very good journal, and in our own clinical practice, have we been using that research finding has not been very often seen in clinical circles. But this is something that, although it's outside the purview of current discussion of publication, but it's something that we need to guard. So, having said these points, in summary, medical education and research cannot be separated. One of the metrics of research is publication, and there are of course several metrics of this publication as well. And the end point is that research has to be put to clinical use in our day-to-day work. Oh, I thank the organizers for letting me come over here. I know it's been a very busy day for all of us. I see a full hall being there, and I am very impressed that people have evinced interest in research activity. Thank you very much and wish you all the best.
Thank you, sir. Thank you so much for those inspiring words. From Springer Nature, I would now request Frank and Harsh Jagdishan to please hand over the memento to Dr. B.N. Gangadhar. Thank you, everyone. As a part of the India Research Bus Tour, we travel across different states, institutions, and we carry along a very interesting rolling baton, which in collaboration this year with Ministry of Education again, we would hand it over to Shri P.K. Banerjee ji. I would request sir to please come here, joined by a Springer Nature family, Frank, Mr. Venkatesh Sarvasiddhi, Stephen Inchcombe, Harsh Jagdishan, Joyce Lorigan. Along with them, I would like to invite Dr. B.N. Gangadhar, Professor Dhananjay Singh, Dr. Govind Makaria, Mr. Shashank Shah, Director at Niti Aayog, and Ramya Haridasan from the PSA office. I would request all of them to be on the stage, please. I would request everyone to continue being on the stage as we have another interesting launch of the India Research Bus Tour 2025, which actually have all the experts that we had from the institutions and researchers across India as a part of this tour. Can I have the book, please? Thank you, everyone. Next speaker, we have Professor Dhananjay Singh, who is the Member Secretary of the Indian Council of Social Science Research. He is a scholar in literary and cultural studies. He has been a chairperson of JNU Center for English Studies, and he has held very academic and administrative roles, including Associate Dean and Chief Protractor. In fact, I would like to say that he is a very accomplished researcher and editor. He has already published with Palgrave Macmillan Springer Nature. I would now request Sir to please be on stage for his, and give his valuable insights.
Thank you so much. Dr. Govind K. Makaria ji, Shri P.K. Banerjee, Dr. B.N. Gangadhar, Frank Rankin Peters, Dr. Deepika Mishra, and Stephen and Venkatesh, and colleagues from AIMS. So in research interns from ICSSR, I'm deeply honored to be here, and I had never visualized this kind of a setup where I will be at AIMS. So I'm extremely lucky. We all have our stories about AIMS, and in fact, AIMS as an institution has virtually touched everybody, especially those who come from the underprivileged backgrounds in this country. We are at an institution that is a paragon of medical research and treatment, and yet would be a site for innumerable social and creative stories and experiences to relate. I represent social science, I represent humanities, I represent the formations and intellectual spaces where science, natural science, medicine, social science and humanities meet, especially as emphasized by the National Education Policy and the policies of the Ministry of Education and the Honorable Education Minister, the Honorable Prime Minister of this country, and the several initiatives to boost social science research in the country, in the nation. Springer Nature India Research Tour, which was a truly fruitful experience, and as ICSSR is representing Indian Council of Social Science Research, I am grateful to Joint Secretary Mr. P.K. Banerjee and Minister of Education for actually suggesting that Indian Council of Social Science Research should do this tour, organize this tour, be part of this tour that started at ICSR and Jawaharlal University and AIMS, and it went across 10 states of the country, ended in MIDS Chennai, and brought together thousands of researchers, young researchers, early career researchers, students of course, with insights and suggestions and challenges to share about social science research. We're really glad that, can I have some water please? Thank you. Of the outcomes of this research tour, and we hope to, thank you so much, we hope to build on the outcomes that we have received. This is also important for ICSSR. ICSSR as an organization under the Ministry of Education, of course, was set up in 1969, was also instrumental in setting up the Association of Asian Social Science Research Councils. In fact, I lead that as well as a president-elect. And the mandate, of course, has been to promote social science research. As you know, for the development of any nation, any society, social science is extremely crucial. Of course, it's a matter of great challenge that social science perhaps does not get that kind of a support, a funding, or priority, of course, globally. But you cannot have any society do any progress. We are also proud of the fact that currently there are 74 research projects on healthcare, healthcare infrastructure, disease prevention, in different aspects, including non-communicable diseases that ICSR is pretty very important part of course, and we are also thankful to our colleagues from AIMS who time and again support us, of course, in monitoring and evaluating these research projects. Recently, of course, and ever since I've joined, I say I'm fortunate that the ministry has, in fact, identified more vigorously the importance of social science research in terms of funding and in terms of also making social science research inclusive. I'm happy to share today that yesterday only we announced our call for projects dedicated to women researchers. We call it women-led research for women-led development. So social science research and interdisciplinary research has to be socially inclusive. We had a conversation only last month where Ashish Jha had participated on global healthcare, and we talked about gender equity and gender equality in decision-making forums in the health sector. So ICSR is concerned about, for every year, for instance, 2024, we have funded close to 1,000 research projects, close to 1,000 research fellowships. Even as we talk now, 4 of our research fellows have been invited to the Nobel Laureate meetings. We're proud of that. We have evaluated close to 17,000 research proposals in 2024. The numbers are staggering. We do also but we at the same time face the challenge of quality, of course, which we face the challenge of actually integrating cutting-edge research methodologies to inform great research ideas come from exciting diversity of background that researchers. And that is why our collaboration with Springer Nature was extremely vital, because we could go out to our researchers, early career researchers, and discuss with them the various challenges they face as research. Another important priority for ICSR is to carry out research on doing research, and we are currently collaborating with the Global Development Network in carrying out research on the research systems in the country. Of course, a vast country like ours, there are bigger challenges to women researchers who come from the marginalized populations. Institutional challenges, of course, challenges of infrastructure, challenges of funding, challenges of doing the research that one is passionate about in different diverse locations. So these are the challenges that the research systems need to be investigated. What are the drawbacks in the research system? What challenges do research systems actually throw in front of researchers? So this is something which is a baseline for us to establish research equity and equality in the country, and we are committed towards that. We have also had several initiatives recently in empowering and enhancing the capacities of researchers coming from the tribal communities. Very recently, only 15 days ago, we have funded researchers doing research on the particularly vulnerable tribal groups of India. There's 75 PVTGs in India, and if India has to develop, if India has to become a Viksit Bharat by 2047, which it has to, then research needs to be all-inclusive, socially inclusive research, social science research, including science research, including research on artificial intelligence and its impact on employment and its impact on different forms of biases that have crept into our societies and that are affecting the technological data that technology is now building its own intelligence on, needs to be investigated. And that's why inclusion is a key word for ICSSR, and in different sectors, be it agriculture or industry or technology or education, it is important for ICSSR and the Ministry of Education to ensure that there is a greater participation and there is a greater investment of people. Now, I'll just end with this statement that the sustainability discourse that is everywhere, of course, in G20 presidency, we adopted the framework of 17 SDGs, has just not come out of air. Of course, there's a lot of politics behind sustainability as well. Where did it arise, where it is leading to? In fact, developing nations and poorer nations had their own traditional modes and methods of development, of course. They were never linear modes. They were not modes that actually emphasize that everybody has to follow the path of industrialized nations, and where it ultimately led to. In that context, I would like to say that is also an important emphasis at ICSSR to recognize our traditions, recognize our heritage. The fact that in our heritage, in our tradition, there was no distinction whatsoever between a human being and another human being, between a human being and an animal. It all started with the Descartes dictum, I think, therefore I am. We had a dictum which never said, I am where I think. In fact, thinking itself is problematized in several of our philosophical systems. So, social science research, humanities research is crucial. It is important for social scientists and humanists to engage in conversation with natural scientists and people from the medicines. It's important for you to engage in conversation with us, and that is, I'll end with the fact that as far as our collaborative research project is concerned, we make it mandatory that there has to be collaboration across disciplines for truly transdisciplinary research. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank you so much, sir. We are happy that we are collaborating again with the Ministry of Education, and last year we had the privilege of getting to understand social science institutions and the research around those areas. I would now request Frank and Joyce Lorigan to please come up on stage and hand over the memento to Dr. Dhananjay Singh. Thank you, everyone. Integrity without knowledge is weak and useless, and knowledge without integrity is dangerous and dreadful. These wise words by Samuel Johnson reminds us that honesty is the foundation of all research. In a world where information is powerful, the role of honesty and ethics in scientific work has never been this important. To enlighten us more on this, I would like to invite Mr. Stephen Inchcombe, President Research at Springer Nature. He has previously served as the Chief Publishing Officer and CEO of Nature Publishing Groups in Palgrave Macmillan. Dedicated to advancing research, he has led publishing, editorial, and platform developments, now focusing on open research and improving integrity, diversity, and assessment in academia. Over to you, Stephen.
Good afternoon, everyone. Today I'd like to explain to you the pressures and challenges researchers and the whole research system face in the integrity area, and in particular what we at Springer Nature are doing to help the research community combat those problems. Publishing trusted research that all can build on sits at the core of our mission. To do this, we use expert editors and publishers. We have over 2,000 salaried ex-researchers working at Springer Nature to guide us through that. But we also work with our community. As you heard from Frank, we have about almost 175,000 external academic editors working on our journals to assess the manuscripts. They work with hand-picked subject domain experts to peer review the work. Over 1 million of them, well over 1 million of them work with us regularly every year to assess those submissions. And increasingly, as you also heard from Frank, we're using the latest technologies, especially artificial intelligence, to enable us to interrogate, check, and identify flawed and fake submitted content, and to undertake more regular quality checks. What does that result in? Well, last year, as you heard, we received 2.3 million submissions of new articles to our systems. As you can see from this slide, though, we ended up publishing 482,000 papers. What that means is that for every one paper that we published, we had to reject 4 others. Now, when companies first came together 10 years ago as Springer Nature, we were rejecting 2 papers for every one paper we published. So the amount of work required for us to evaluate the papers has doubled in the course of 10 years. And that's a sign of how much the world has changed during that time, partially due to the pressures under the research system and partially due to how technology in particular has been used to enable the falsification and faking of research that we've seen happening, especially in the last 5 years. As Frank said, we're in a bit of an arms race with artificial intelligence between those trying to protect the system and those trying to take advantage of it. Our job, though, is to protect the scientific record so everyone can rely on it. That's our role as a research publisher. So in addition to the people and systems I've already talked about, we also employ the world's leading and first research integrity team that we started building up from a very small base 10 years ago up to now about 70 people working with specialist tools and technology to be able to do that. They work with us also the research integrity community, which is involving now about 25 sleuths operating who are researchers who spend their lives dedicated to trying to find and identify all sorts of practices such as citation rings, authorship for sale, and so on that's going on. Beyond that, we work with the publishing industry itself to collaborate with organisations like COPE, the STM Association, and the World Conference on Research Integrity. And then lastly, we're working with the research community themselves to try to prevent the problems by training tens of thousands of researchers every year to identify research integrity problems and the standards to which we all need to hold ourselves and our work available. Despite all those efforts, last year we retracted 2,923 articles. They had already been published and they were found to be flawed, and that's why we withdrew them. Although that's a very large number, it represents not much more than 0.6% of all the articles we published last year. And most of those, 61%, were for papers published before January 2023. So we're cleaning up the scientific record. Now we've got the tools and expertise to be able to identify past problems. Nonetheless, still almost 40% of those retractions took place for articles since January 2023. Importantly, though, because there are often concerns about open access, and Frank talked earlier about the fact our publishing process is exactly the same, so also is our evaluation process, including for post-publication. Last year, 41% of those articles that we published since January 23 were published in open access. They were published as open access articles. That compares with 47% in total that we published. So the actual retraction rate on open access is slightly lower, it turns out, than under subscription articles. So I think the evidence is very clear that at Springer Nature at least, the research integrity issues are not an open access related problem, they're a wider system related problem that we're all grappling with. Research integrity itself covers a range of issues. There are honest, genuine errors where researchers trying their best have made an error and that needs to be corrected. There are also, under pressure, researchers sometimes resort to trying to manipulate their data to be able to prove better the conclusions that they think they've reached, try to borrow work from others and publish it under their own name as plagiarism, and sometimes they adjust the images that they're trying to illustrate their work, and all of these things are breaches of integrity standards and the ethics of research. So these things are things that we're increasingly identifying, but they are also generally very specific to individual researchers. The big problem that our entire system faces is authorship for sale with the paper mills. And here I must say India has been especially targeted by the paper mills, and it's therefore an issue that's much more prevalent in the Indian system than it is in some other systems, and that's why we've got to work together to protect researchers and the whole system and the reputation of India on a global stage from these bad actors seeking to make money at your expense. When we look to investigate problems, to be honest, there can be everything from a single paper that was published in error where you can resolve matters in a matter of days or a week or two, even when you're working with the employer or research institution that that researcher is working at, to sometimes entire groups working together across multiple organisations where those organisations are very concerned about reputational damage, and sometimes that can take many months, sometimes over a year, and an entire team working across the community to resolve. So what we bracket under research integrity can have a very wide range of underlying work to be able to resolve it. Depending on the severity of what is found, a variety of actions can be taken. Simply, a correction can be made. An addendum can be added to a paper to clarify something. More importantly, or more severe cases, matters arising can be added, or an editor's note, or even an editor's expression of concern when they're trying to find out. They want to warn the community there's a significant problem, but they're not sure whether it's going to result in a retraction or one of the lesser forms such as an editor's note or matters arising. Editorial expressions of concern are generally therefore temporary and will result in a more permanent outcome, the most significant of which are retractions. Because as I say, retractions can happen for genuine errors. Don't treat a retraction as a terrible black mark against a researcher, but where multiple retractions are occurring against the same researchers, that's where we work with institutions to try and deal with that systematic problem, and for those researchers to be dealt with by their employers, sometimes quite severely, because they're bringing down the trust in the whole system, and that's something we can't afford to put at risk. So, we believe transparency and openness is critical to building trust and maintaining it in the whole system. So we're aiming not just to be a leader in this area and to work together with the community to prevent these attacks, especially those large-scale ones empowered by artificial intelligence. We're also aiming to make this very open and clear to everybody about our performance and our performance of our authors, our editors and our peer reviewers. So today in India, we're launching Springer Nature's Research Integrity Hub, a new portal to help everybody understand what's going on, and everything I've covered here today in the presentation, and a lot more detail in the way of helpful notes for researchers are available now on this portal, and together with updated statistics for ourselves. If you can't remember the URL, it's not exactly the world's shortest, no problem. All you have to do is go to Google Springer Nature Research Integrity and it will come up straight away, takes you straight to it, and we'll be updating it regularly with more advice and more statistics going forward. That was a whistle-stop tour through research integrity. Thank you very much for your time, and I hope that you'll be able to take advantage of this in the future. Thank you.
Thank you, Stephen. Thank you for enlightening us on research integrity and how important it is. Moving on, we have exciting line of panel discussions, but I would request from AIMS Dr. Deepika Mishra to please come up on stage, and Dr. Varun Surya to please hand over the memento to the team from Springer Nature. I would now request Frank, CEO of Springer Nature, to please come up on stage. I would request Mr. Stephen Inchcombe, President Research, to please come up on stage. Next, I would like to invite Mr. Venkatesh Sarvasiddhi, Managing Director, Springer Nature, India. I would now request Mr. Harsh Dagjishan, to Chief Publishing Officer, Springer Nature, to please come up on stage. I would now request Joyce Lorigan, Group Head of Corporate Affairs, Springer Nature, to please come up on stage. Thank you, everyone. As we move on to the next stage of the forum, which we would like to start with the first panel discussion, which talks about strengthening India's research and the way forward. India is an emerging global research powerhouse, but the challenges remain the same: funding, collaboration, integrity, and innovation. How do we address these to propel India's research ecosystem forward? For this panel, moderation would be done by Mr. Venkatesh Sarvasiddhi, Managing Director, Springer Nature, India. We have Dr. Ananya Mukherjee, Vice Chancellor, Shiv Nada University. Dr. Shashank Shah, Director, Higher Education, Niti Aayog. Harsh Jagdishan, Chief Publishing Officer, Springer Nature, India. Dr. Pami Dua, Senior Professor and former Director, Delhi School of Economics, Delhi University. Saumak Ray Chaudhary, Vice Chancellor, Ashoka University. Ramya Haridasan, Scientist D, Office of the Principal Scientific Advisor, Government of India. And Dr. Govind K. Makharia, Dean at AIIMS. Yeah.
Deep, can you help on that?
Thank you so much. Thank you everyone for being here today in the first half of the afternoon, talking about the launch, talking about various initiatives government is taking, from, of course, the NMC to Ministry of Education, ICSSR under the Ministry of Education. We heard all of that. So we moved to the very interesting part of the second phase of the entire engagement, which is on panel discussion. I have with me the opportunity to be the moderator, but we have very interesting set of speakers coming from different parts of ecosystem. Maybe to start with Harsh Jagdishan, he's the Chief Publishing Officer, Springer Nature, joining us from Germany. Then we have Ramya. Ramya is the key person, in fact, who was actively driving. She's a scientist at the Office of Principal Scientific Advisor, and also a person who played a key role in the One Nation, One Subscription and various initiatives leading to science, research and development in this country. We have Dr. Shashank Shah, the Director Higher Education, Niti Aayog, with us, who focuses on education all up India. He looks into larger frame of higher education and also policies centric around India and the Indian government around education. We have with us Dr. Ananya. Ananya is the Vice Chancellor of the Shivnadar University. She's a researcher, she's a publisher. She published many articles, of course, and Shivnadar is doing some exciting work in the SDG space. Would love to, of course, in the panel touch upon that and understand a little bit deeper into it. We have Dr. Somak Roy Chaudhary, the Vice Chancellor of Ashoka University. I think it doesn't require any introduction, because Ashoka, even though it's a new university, but they had set its standards very high, not only at an India level, but at a global level. A lot of students may engage and interact with your alumni. They keep talking about it and the quality of work you guys do. Dr. Pammi Duwaji, she is a senior professor, former director of Delhi School of Economics, and also the advisor, one of the advisors to the RBI, Government of India. And our expertise in the area of economics is not just limited to Delhi School of Economics, but also to the Government of India. I'm Venkatesh, I'm the Managing Director of Springer Nature, looking after the Indian operations. So today I think with this kind of key panelists, one key thing that comes to my mind is the overall coverage of different dimensions of academic research. We have Delhi School of Economics, and the economic side we have one of the emerging universities globally known, Ashoka. We have a full-fledged University of Shivnadar, which is doing some amazing work in SDG space, and then the government officials on this side, along with Harsh, who would certainly be enlightening with some of the things what we are looking, not just as a Springer Nature, but overall publishing is evolving globally. That's typically how it is. I also want to announce that Professor Naresh Patnagar, the Dean of Research at IIT Delhi, because of his last minute emergencies, he could not join us today. So, I would certainly take the inputs and, hand over this to him. To start with, I think from a standpoint of Pammi Duwaji, we'll start with you and probably we'll go around the table here. That's, how do we attract, India is of course growing. We are world's number 3 in terms of research output. There's a lot of work that needs to be done again in the quality side, citations, as the Dean of AIMS has touched upon. We have to improve on citations, and quality-wise we can move up from the 9th rank to a better rank as we move forward. But there's also one interesting thing that's happening is globally, retractions are happening and in a very faster pace with the advancement of technology. Thank you, sir, for joining in. We also have him in the key panel along with Keynote, what he has delivered, Dr. Govind Makaria ji from All India Institute of Medical Science. Thanks for joining the panel. So, we'll start with Pammi Duwaji and we'll come to you. But what are your views on retractions in India? And how do we address this? Because you lead one of the largest universities, University of Delhi, you represent the Delhi School of Economics. What are your viewpoints on it?
Thank you very much. Is this on?
Yeah, that's on.
So I think we should first understand what is the meaning of research integrity and what it implies for retraction. So when we talk about research integrity, we mean the pursuit of original investigation in an ethical, trustworthy, and socially responsible manner. And retraction implies that a published article is withdrawn from the scientific literature due to research misconduct, which indicates a breach in research integrity. So how do we handle this? Now, several studies conducted recently show that retractions in India are increasing over time. Although the time between publication of a paper in a journal and its subsequent retraction is decreasing. And this indicates that journals are actively pursuing measures against research misconduct. a variety of reasons have been cited in the literature for the increasing number of retraction. These include fabrication, which involves generating data without having performed the relevant research, falsification of data, which implies manipulating research materials, equipment, etc. Plagiarism, the appropriation of another person's ideas, processes, results, or words without giving appropriate credit. Then we also have false peer review reports. And this entails highly favorable fraudulent reports given by peer review experts, leading to acceptance of not so good quality papers. Then we also have retraction happening because of duplication of article publication, which occurs when the same article is published multiple times in different journals and is discovered later. We have the issue of human errors, and these include issues such as errors in data collection which lead to results that are not replicable and which surface later. Then we have the problem of copyright infringement, which somehow escapes the journal at the time of publication, which means that the paper has used material that is copyrighted without permission. Then there may also be some research which causes harm to research subjects, and this was not noticed at the time the paper was accepted, and these research subjects could be human or animal subjects, and the journal therefore decides to retract the paper. Now, how does this work? Is it just research in India, or what happens when Indian researchers collaborate with people abroad? So there is a recent study by Sharma 2024 that shows that 80% of retractions originate domestically, while the remaining 20% stem from international collaborations of Indian researchers. So most of it is happening within the Indian community. Then also another finding is that in intra-country collaborations, half of the total retractions originate from the top two journal quartiles, that is Q1 and Q2. So we're talking about the most impactful journals. So how do we deal with this, especially in an academic institution or a university? So if we have to reduce retractions and instances of research misconduct, it is important for the university or institution to foster a culture of research integrity and ensure that research is conducted ethically and responsibly. And for this, it is important for the institution to follow a code of conduct for research and research integrity. So the code of conduct would lay out the principles and expectations of conducting responsible research and would also specify best research practices, which include compliance with legal, ethical, and professional standards. The code would also explain potential breaches or research misconduct and their nature and consequences. And this clearly also includes the possibility of retraction, which has to be made aware to the researchers of an institution. So the responsibility for this lies within the institution to raise awareness of the importance of research integrity and of the possible consequences if appropriate standards are not maintained. And one of the consequences is retraction, which can be a big embarrassment to the researcher as well as the institution.
Yeah. Thank you so much. In fact, you touched upon a very interesting insight. 80% emerges domestically and 20% through international collaboration. That's something, an important thing for all of us and also the policy makers to look at it. How do we arrest that kind of a thing? Dr. Govind Makaria-ji, one of the key things I want to understand from you is AIIMS is the largest producer of research in the country in the healthcare space, your center and also other centers put together. What is really fostering the research community growth here? Because you had the research initiatives here. Maybe you can touch upon a little bit on how you're fostering the community of research to publish more. In fact, my team was surprised in spite of their heavy clinical, workloads, they still publish. What is that really driving? And also maybe you can touch upon a little bit on some practices on research integrity at AIIMS.
Thank you so much. I think a couple of things which are kind of ingrained in the institution infrastructure or say, policies that AIMS has been created for three missions. One of the first missions when we were created in 1960s was to train people, good doctors and teachers who can go around the country and create that kind of environment everywhere. And third one was patient care in excellence in teaching, excellence in research. Therefore, all three things are part and parcel of everyone who work here. So most people who are clinicians or non-clinician, they have the time for research, and they, I think, kind of the whole environment motivate them to do so. Also, they are also required as you go in the ladder. They are also part of your assessment. That's also one other thing. What more important is the personal motivation, which drives people to do research. Getting fund to do research is not very difficult because the question which we raise at AIMS are generally many of them are translational, and they are of value. So that's also motivates people to do find out the new knowledge where you can treat patients better. So that's direct motivation, that your own research help you treat your patients much better. Seeing a cohort of patient over long term, looking at the outcome, looking at what test do I do, kind of all those things help you in learning yourself and making important information out of that. So that's what I think most important thing. The second thing that it also helps that at AIMS we have a research section which deals with all the administrative aspect, everything which is in terms of management, the research management cell. So everything, once you purchase a grant and you have a grant, then you can doing it. Everything is now taken care of from administrative point of view, finances and administration. Also to foster research at every level of training and every level of high up. We also give intramural grant. Intramural grants are not big grants, they're small grants, but we're starting from intramural grant for those faculty who join in early career. So it's very difficult to get money from funding agency at early part of life. You require some data on which you build up your bigger research questions. And therefore we give early career research grants. Not only for that, only for collaboration. You can collaborate with multiple universities. For that we have a lot of MOUs which drive the initial seed fund and to develop collaboration. So we have collaborated with THSTI, IGIB, UCL in London and many other universities. Furthermore, look at postgraduates. So even at postgraduates, we support a little fund to support their thesis, so that they are able to do little amount of work. Certainly they can't be a big question, but whatever work they do, they are supported. And ultimately, we also want to involve our youngsters, MBBS students, undergrads, and we also support them, at least 50 of them with research grant. All are competitive. So therefore, we maintain from very beginning, from early part of the training to later half. That's how it goes.
In fact, quite interesting to note about the early career researchers who are doing their doctoral
programs and the grant what you have. That's a very interesting thing because India has almost 750 medical colleges, and you set a benchmark for the others. I believe these kind of initiatives taken by others, both private and public medical institutions, can really foster, and that goes back to the number 350,000 researchers in the healthcare space Dr. Gangadhar has touched upon from the NMC side just in his keynote a few minutes back. Thank you for your thoughts, quite inspiring. Moving on, where he left in terms of an MOUs and corporates coming into the play, I think first of all thanks to Ashoka, this made people realize there are streams beyond engineering and medicine in the country, and I also heard that a lot of students who get into IITs but they choose Ashoka, which is a great remarkable achievement, I say, in a short term you have established. One of the key things that drives the growth at Ashoka are your collaborations and partnerships, whether with the universities, academic institutions of repute, research institutions or corporates. Can you give me a little bit idea, because you have been excelling in the space, the role of corporates and collaborations in driving and bridging that gap between academia and research, and how corporates come into play.
Thanks very much. Thank you for giving me this chance of speaking here. So the Ashoka University is 10 years old, very, very young. But it's a new kind of university. First of all, it's liberal arts. So as you said, going beyond the professional streams, looking at humanities, social sciences, and physical sciences coming together, teaching, learning in an interdisciplinary manner. But also, the other aspect of it that's very new is that it's a full-fledged research university, which is very difficult to do in this liberal arts space. So we started off by making sure that every single faculty member is research active, because there's a tenure track system. On the other hand, the students from the very beginning, and of course it was originally an undergraduate teaching institution that grew into a graduate research institution, we made sure that undergraduates feel the need of research, they get involved in research, and then finally produce research in very good. So you're talking about career researchers. Professor Gangadhar talked about student research. 30% of our research output now come out of undergrad, led by undergraduates.
Wow.
And that's a significant amount of work. And that's not just in the laboratory-based subjects, but also in social sciences and humanities. And this is entirely fostered by the fact that we have a very widespread net of international collaborations. We partner with more than 100 universities already, in which there are student exchanges for semesters, summers, etc., but also for research. However, Ashoka's raison d'etre is the fact that a bunch of corporate entities got together and decided they will make a liberal arts university. So we have more than 200 donors who have come together, and it's a collective philanthropy, non-profit institution. And so we already have these industrial connections from the people who set the place up. And then we also look for them for student destinations. So about 25% of our students go into further education, but the others go into the corporate space or social space. And the fact that they do research prepares them for this, for these destinations, which is why research becomes an integral part of the education at Ashoka. So the engagement with the corporate world comes from the very beginning, the way we prepare students for their post-university life, but also make sure they have the correct skills in there. And this is the secret, I think, of bringing in industry and corporate world into education. You have to break down the boundaries between the different subjects. So students think about research as not just something that they have to learn, but also look at the relevance of the research in the social setting. And so somebody who is, for example, learning how to solve a certain theorem or solve a set of equations, actually they are working on a problem that's been posed by industry for them. And so they look at not just looking at the academic import of their research, but also the applications of research. And so breaking down boundaries is very important. And of course, we now see in the context of AI as well, that if you're looking at a research tool, it is very important to know where it's going to be applied. And so for example, the people who work on data sciences are looking at social science applications, humanities applications, as well as applications with data coming from health sciences, for example. And same tools are being applied everywhere. So there, you can see how industry can get involved in this, because they are looking at people who are developing the basic tools that will be used in industry. So of course, the industrial engagement is very important for financing research, which is also very important in private universities such as ours, because the research has to be financed not by the kind of donations that we get from philanthropy, but also motivated to actually research output. And that's how globally research is funded. And I think in India, that is only starting off now. But also for students to see the relevance of the industrial engagement and corporate engagement by putting. I'm not saying at any moment that all research should be motivated by that, because There are two kinds of research, of course. There's research that is motivated by short-term goals, where the problem that has been posed by somebody else. There's also the blue skies research that is the long-term research. You need to do both. Because there is so much I can give you so many examples of research that started off as research on paper, but in 50 years' time, 100 years' time, you started to understand
what it is,
for and where the application will be. And so I'm an astronomer myself, so I know what blue skies research means. Because a lot of stuff that I do is to study the stars, but you know, I mean, something that was developed for astronomy 50 years ago is in this phone right now, the digital camera. So, you know, people who were developing at that time did not know that it's going to be in everybody's pockets. So we have to do long-term research. And industry and these collaborations have to supply both kinds of research, I think. And support both kinds of research. And that is one of the key things that I think we should think about in universities now.
Thank you so much. It's quite nice to hear your thoughts and also having you here. Two things that excite me is your 30% of undergraduate involved in research. That's really an amazing thing to look at, and it's an example for many Indian educational institutions. And 100+ university partnerships, and that too in a short time. You know, that's something exemplary work what you guys are doing for what you stand out actually. Moving on the similar thing, one of the leading private universities, Shiv Nadar, it's known to do great work in SDG space. I think you are one of the top institutions in India aligning your research across multiple disciplines to SDGs. That's one of our core commitment as a publisher, Springer Nature. How can we align? In fact, this year the content what we published in books from India is 47% aligned to SDGs. You know, that's one of our commitments as a publisher to this country. So, Dr. Ananya, you're known as a person who strongly believed in it. As a researcher, you made this happen, scaled it across the university. Can you share some thoughts? Because there are a lot of students here would love to understand and love to align their research to SDGs.
I think you're giving me too much credit for something that happened, I won't say entirely organically, but somewhat organically. So Shiv Nadar University, of course, has a big emphasis on research to begin with, and Mr. Nadar's own vision was a private university must do fundamental research, applied research, and now we've also moved to translational research. And so, coming to how we sort of align to SDG, when I came, I saw that there was a lot of fantastic research going on across all fields. But I love to ask the question, so what? How will this impact, and what will this impact? Because our research training, which we've all gone through, asks you to identify a gap in the literature and gives you very rigorous methodology, and then you produce a result. But why does that matter to the rest of the world? And I live on campus. Many of our faculty, 180 now, live on campus. All students live on campus. So they did not want to even talk to me after a while, because I was always asking, so what? What is the result? And that sort of brought to the fore that a lot of research that was going on had very strong implications for not only one but multiple sustainable development goals. And then, with all of the ways in which Elsevier or Scopus now allows the tagging and then gives the results according to sustainable development goals, all that got people excited very quickly to figure out where the impact is. And then I saw that even when hiring of new faculty was done, often this question was raised as to where is the sustainable development goal impact. And some of our programs, like civil engineering, for example, has almost entirely changed its curriculum, aligning it to the SDGs, because the field is so so influenced by the importance of SDGs. And we are now getting not only interdisciplinary research on sustainability, but really serious curriculum starting from prerequisite to requisite to all the way to a PhD degree, which would work around sustainable development goals. So I think if I can claim anything that me and my colleagues, the deans actually took this on, the deans, the heads, the research mentors, was to continuously ask that question. And from that question came the focus, and then not everybody works on some SDG, but the SDGs are also so broadly defined that, you know, when somebody was, and I always say, being a social scientist myself, that, you know, if somebody's doing research on cancer, you have such a good answer that my work will cure cancer. If I'm an economist, I have to struggle a little bit more, but please tell me what that answer is. So that's how we built, I think, this small, you know, it's through small measures to really think of the SDG goals. And now I think we've gone a stage further where people are even thinking of interconnectivity of multiple SDG goals, like starting from health, gender, which are almost always connected. And we see that, you know, we also have, like Ashoka, an undergraduate program of research. It's called Opportunities for Undergraduate Research, where any student from any faculty, any school can work with any faculty from any program. And so we're seeing a lot of work around these, you know, on the borders of disciplines, which are around health, disease. We've just launched a Center for Translational Research. I invite all of you to come and visit us for that. And so those are the ways in which we are going forward in this area.
Lovely. I think one key takeaway for me is how you're looking at redesigning the curriculum, you know. I think in an Indian context, curriculum updates and curriculum redesign is extremely important to meet the current needs, and that's where the curriculum updates generally take in span of 4 years, 6 years. That's how they do it. But now, looking at what you said, how can we redesign the curriculum, not only from a teaching perspective, but aligning that with SDGs and connecting multiple SDGs, you know, to understand the holistic view. I think these are some interesting insights and what you shared. Really appreciate the same.
Can I add one word?
Yeah, please.
I think very well said, Dr. Mukherjee, that it's very important for all of us that to realize what we do, why we do. And this question, what's saying that what the importance of our work, what work we do, we put our multiple years, a lot of resources, time, energy. What do you get out of it? A dot of knowledge. Every work will lead to some knowledge gain, but is this knowledge useful? Is knowledge making a story? And that's, I think, all of you youngsters, it's very important to think about what is said, that so what? And a scientist have to have that kind of question always in mind. Whatever I do, whatever my research protocol shows, how do I use this knowledge to anything which is good? Good in terms of translation, good in terms of new knowledge, in terms of pathophysiology, understanding disease, or understand some new concept. But that's very, very important for each one of us to understand. Life becomes more useful once we have this concept in mind that what we do, why we do.
Yeah, absolutely. In fact, later in the week, in fact, we are at Ahmedabad at MICA, coming few days. We are doing an interesting forum on communicating research in an easy language for public to understand. You know, there's so much of work done at AIIMS in the area of oral cancer, maybe neuro, and maybe other areas of diabetes and cardiology. But how do we convey that research in easily approachable, communicable language so that everybody can benefit from a public policy standpoint? We have that coming up at MICA later this week. In fact, that's an interesting note, what you said, very interestingly. Moving on to Dr. Shashank Shah, Director at TT Aayog. You know, I was thinking, what is the toughest question I can ask you, because you have answers for most of it in my due course of interactions. So they all touched upon research importance, research integrity, but one of the key things right in the keynote was the government spends 0.7% of the GDP. And when compared with US and China, which is 3.5 and 2.5 above, so which are higher percentages. But at the end of the day, funding is extremely important. You are the Planning Commission of India. You advise the Prime Minister and all the key ministries. What are your views, and also how much would be the allocation as part of the Vikasit Bharat 2047? I think that's what everybody in this room would like to know. Till 2047, what is the kind of an GDP spend you want to arrive on research?
Sure. Thank you, Venkatesh, for inviting me to provide a macro perspective to R&D in India. I think it's important to get the context of how R&D in India is different from other countries. And given our aspirations to become a Viksit Bharat 2047, R&D is going to play a very, very important role, because as research says, a 1% increase in R&D as in terms of GDP leads to a 0.13% increase in per capita GDP. So there is a direct established link. It's important to understand that India is doing well when it comes to nominal R&D expenditure. We are at par with our peer BRICS nations. In fact, we are 9 times that of South Africa. So we are doing well in terms of R&D expenditure in nominal terms. We have stagnated around 0.7%, but when we convert that into an amount, which is about 2 lakh crore rupees, it is an 8 times increase in the last 20 years and a 2x increase in the last 10 years. So that's a substantive amount of money because our GDP is rising. And just a figure, yesterday our GDP increased 2x in the last 10 years. So when we talk about a stagnating 0.7%, it's on a much larger base. But our per capita GDP, when we count, given that we are the most populous nation in the world, it comes down substantively. We are about $13 per capita compared to $2,000 plus in US or in Israel. Israel is nearly $2,500. So that is a key area of focus with respect to the government. I think it's important also to note that in developed economies like US, like China, like Germany, it's the private sector which contributes nearly 75% of investment in R&D. It's 77% in China. It is 75% in US. It is 67% in Germany. So it's a substantive amount of private sector contribution to R&D. When we compare that with India, it is about 50% contribution of the public sector in R&D. It's about 45% by central government and about 6% by state governments. And we can say about 5% by public sector industry. So about 55% comes from the public sector, about 35% comes from the private sector, and about 9% is by the higher education sector. So there is a fundamental skew in R&D investment in India, which is very, very evident. And there is an increasing need, say in the next 25 years, for the private sector investment in R&D to double. From 35% to 70% if we were to reach the developed economy status. And hence we should look at how we can proactively collaborate with industry and ensure that there is more PPP in the research space. I think there's also an important part which I would like to highlight is that there is a very clear distinction between research and higher education in India. Way back in 1942-43, when the CSIR was started by Arkat Ramaswamy Mudliar, or for that matter, the National Physical, National Chemical, National Meteorological Laboratories started under Sri Shyama Prasad Mukherjee, who was then Industries Minister, were all focused on research. And higher education has been primarily focused on degree granting, influenced by the Macaulayan model. So in India, unlike most developed countries, research and higher education happened in silos over the last nearly 1 century and more. And that has led to the perspective of higher education being very divorced from the perspective of research. And that has affected both sectors substantively because research has not fed into pedagogy. And higher education has not created career researchers. And that's one of the key challenges of India, which needs to be addressed substantively in the years ahead. But I think the National Education Policy 2020 has addressed this in a substantive measure. The focus now is on the 3 pillars of access, quality, and future readiness. And research forms a very core part of quality, and applied research leading to innovation and entrepreneurship forms a very core part of future readiness. And hence the focus on creating multidisciplinary education and research universities, or MERUs, is a primacy of the national education policy. where research and higher education would feed into each other, and they would intermingle in higher education institutions where research will be a core part. And I think that's a very vital contribution of the national education policy, which has drawn our attention to ensuring that research is mainstream in universities like it is in the developed world. But I must highlight the fact here that research in higher education institutions in India is at a very wide spectrum. At one end, we have the likes of IIT Madras, which I visited last weekend, where we had a Niti Aayog workshop on internationalization of higher education, and where I'd invited both Professor Roy Chaudhary and Professor Mukherjee, but both could not participate for different reasons. But at IIT Madras, we saw R&D at one end of the spectrum, where the students, undergraduate students in second year of their BTech programs are associated with cutting edge research areas, as in designing electric planes, which have received approvals now for their prototypes, and participating in 3D printed rockets, which have already tested last year, the Agni Kool. So these are examples of how extremely high-end research and application is happening in Indian institutions. And at the other end, you have state public universities, where there are fundamental issues of research not even being a priority because of severe shortage of faculty, because of severe teaching burden and administrative responsibilities, and also because of shortage of funding. Because unlike central universities, state public universities get minuscule funding, because nearly 90% of the state budgets go into payment of revenue expenditure, primary salaries, and the remaining part goes into infrastructure. So research hardly features in the primacies of state governments. So there is a broad spectrum of universities in India, and the focus needs to be on providing customized solutions to universities at various levels of their trajectory. It is at one end of the spectrum where the likes of IIT Madras need to be handheld to take them to cutting edge areas at par with the best universities in the world. It is to facilitate institutions in the private domain like Ashoka or Shiv Nadar, which are doing very interesting work both in the social sciences and the natural sciences. And the other end, to facilitate state public universities, to handhold them through IPs, through technology transfer offices, enabling their faculty to get funding, handholding them capacity building to ensure that they are able to write proposals which can get funding from government bodies, because even that capacity is limited. So there is a need for a very, very customized approach with respect to the kind of research handholding required. I'll conclude with the point that Venkatesh asked on what kind of funding we can expect in a Viksit Bharat. I think we need to look at the power of research in facilitating transformation in a country. There is a study in the UK which conveys that the University of Cambridge single-handedly contributes 3 lakh crores to the UK economy, of which 2,30,000 crores comes only from its research-related activities. And for every £1 of publicly funded research income received by Cambridge, the university contributes nearly £12 to the economy. So that's the kind of catalytic effect that research plays in a country. And I think in India, it is very, very important to look at research from that lens, not from the lens of producing papers, not from the lens of ranking, not from the lens of hoarding patents, not from the lens of attracting more funding, but from the lens of catalyzing the growth of the country and contributing to its socio-economy in a substantive measure. From a funding perspective, I think from 0.7% of GDP, the funding to higher education, rather not funding, I would say, attracting more funding in R&D, is expected to rise to 3.5% of the GDP and contributing to its socio-economy, which is a 5x increase. But the economy itself will increase from nearly 4 trillion to 30 trillion, which is a 7.5% of which GDP, means there is going to be about funding to higher education, or rather not funding, increase the investment in India in the next 25 years. 3.5% of the GDP. This a substantive responsibility which will be and should be on the private sector, the economy as itself is the trend in the developed economies. From nearly 4 trillion to 30 trillion, is in the university sector, it means that there is going to be at least a 4x increase in R&D investments available in the university. R&D investment in India is ready to absorb this kind of substantive responsibility. What kind of infrastructure will be and should be on the private sector building, as is the trend in the developed economies. But if 10% of this in Indian universities in order to be able to absorb there is going to be at least going to be a very important question that available in the leadership will need to answer, the deans of research will need to answer, and we need to work very proactively with clear short-term, medium-term and long-term goals, so that you can well leverage the likes of the Anusandhan National Research Foundation, which has been now in order to be able to absorb this R&D with a 50,000 crore budget question, and the likes of the investment leadership will need to answer, the deans of research will need to answer, in the previous budget, need to work very proactively with clear short-term, medium-term and long-term goals, so that you can well leverage the likes of you will have to rise up to the requirements of that funding, which has been, but you will also have to engage very proactively with the 50,000 crore budget, and I think the industry will have to engage very proactively with academia, which is in order to create a win-win that will benefit the nation in substantial measure in frontier technologies. So a lot of funding is going to come your way. You will have to rise up to the requirements of that funding, but you will also have to engage very proactively with the industry. And I think the industry will have to engage very proactively with academia in order to create a win-win that will benefit the nation in substantial measure.
Government research funding limitation. So, you spoke about the Vikasit Bharat 40 to 45 music to my ears. I want to stop more funding on R&D coming in because of the economy growing and also the percentage allocation to be 3.5 by 2047. Very interesting insight. Thank you. I think this is what talk about a lot of youngsters and researchers and academics wanted to hear. A big round of applause for that. You spoke about key insight and commitment from government. Second is also the interesting thing about the lower participation of the economy growing and also the percentage allocation to be 3.5. That's what 35% in India versus 77 and 75. I think this is USA and China, which is a very interesting insight, and academics that's where our private sector and corporate sector should gear up key insight and commitment from government. Of course, India would second lead also the interesting thing about and IIT Chennai. I think IIT Chennai is doing fabulous work, whether it's Agnikul or whether it's Hyperloop. They're testing 35% in India, electric 77 and 75 in USA and China, which is a very interesting insight them. And that's where our private sector and IIT Chennai, but we got them together here with you. Of course, India would certainly lead. That's really nice to have both of you here. Spend is concerned. So and IIT Chennai, I think moving on from here to Ramya, whether it's Agnikul or whether it's Hyperloop, they're testing our PS's office, and that's one of the important divisions that really lead the research and research integrity, working on research development in the country from a scientific research standpoint. That's really nice to have both of you here. Growing challenges around predatory journals. A lot of these researchers, students, doctors here go through these challenges of predatory journals and PS's office. What are your views and how are you looking at arresting that particular thing in India? Divisions that really lead the research and research integrity, working on research development in the country from a scientific research standpoint. Your views on growing challenges around predatory journals. A lot of these researchers, students, doctors here go through these challenges of predatory journals and paper mills. What are your views and how are you looking at arresting that particular thing in India?
To the reasons why, what motivates the point of view to actually resort to such means that is a blatant, a violation of research ethics also in a way. But as part of our office's work on also trying to bring in transformation in the open access scenario in the country, resort to such means, very important measure which was blatant, the need for violation of the research evaluation, research ethics also. That is the primary reason as to why, as part of our office's work on practices are being are getting much to be open access in a way on its own it is getting propagated. So very important measure in terms of research evaluation, the need for reforms in the research evaluation. It is the system itself which that is the primary reason as to why there is mandate on publishing certain number of practices are being a certain degree like sometime back on its own it is getting requirement on certain number of papers to achieve PhD. I mean in terms of research evaluation and then also it somehow it is the system itself which propagates such things that the evaluation of there is mandate on publishing certain number of papers even though it is not a certain degree like sometime back there was put across that such requirement is there that these to achieve your papers should be and then also it somehow is but that bias somehow promotions and inherently comes in the evaluation of researchers and academicians said out loud so yeah it is there. Even though it is so this is something which needs to be reformed in the sense across that such requirement is there that these needs to be evaluated by published in such high-ranking journals. Of course, but that bias somehow in easier evaluation, but somehow it's not into it's not the merit of the work, but yeah, and also how it impacts. So this is something which needs to be reformed in the sense that, and also the intrinsic merit of the work needs to be other aspects by entrepreneurship does now, and of course quantification which are very relevant in evaluation, but somehow a deep dive into the merit of the work. So there are also international efforts, the socio-economic, the progress of the country, and also how assessment research, other international efforts which are ongoing in India from aspects such as also we are planning to explore these avenues also, but just like in the case of ONOS taken into consideration. So we did international efforts also, did a scoping exercise of the coalition on which in many cases turns out to be a very international efforts which are ongoing in India. So the idea is to study what's going on. Also we are planning to try to see these avenues, but just like in the case of ONOS, we can evolve. We did a study of what is happening. Evaluation needs to change. Did a scoping exercise of one important India's landscape, which in many cases turns out.
Sure, thank you so much. And one of the key themes of our India Research Tour last year and even this year is on research integrity. Explaining the young researchers, academicians about do's and don'ts and how, things specific to research integrity, providing them resources around research integrity, conducting trainings like Nature Masterclass online free of cost. Thank you so much. To benefit all the researchers, and we continue that India Research Tour journey as we move to the Bus 3.0, research and we'll seek your help and collaboration. Explaining the young researchers, academicians about do's and don'ts and how, things specific to research integrity, providing them resources around research integrity, conducting trainings like Nature Masterclass online free of cost to benefit all the researchers, and we continue that commitment and journey as we move into the Bus Tour 3.0, and we will seek your help and collaboration in the same. Okay.
Actually, just the fact also because this cabinet was also assigned from the government in the country commitment. I had two additional points that I thought everybody here can, and this aligns very well with the One Nation One Subscription is as flagship initiative which our office played a very pivotal role. So through ONOS, we are trying to bring the fact that it access to the resources for knowledge, which the researchers can utilize to do research. Now that is how the aims of ANRF is getting and this aligns very well. Apart from that, there is an initiative called the ISTEM as well as the goals of the National Education Indian Science Technology. So through ONOS, we are trying to bring access to the resources for knowledge, which the researchers can utilize to do enables the sharing of how the equipment of ANRF is achieved there. Across, apart from that, there is an initiative called the ISTEM. So this is also a first of its kind Indian science where especially the focus is on providing access to research, which is also a portal developed by researchers, especially in the tier 2 and tier 3 institutions, where it enables the sharing not able to get access because of funded scientific resource constraints across academic and this is a portal where there are about this is also a first of its kind effort where especially the focus is on providing access to research infrastructure. There are about 28,000 users in the tier 2 and tier 3 institutions and which are not able to get access because about 2,500 institutions in the country have budget. So this is anybody can go onto the ISTEM about 27,000 register there which the users can select which are registered on the portal. There are about 28,000 users already based on their proximity as well as these 28,000 you can make the payment also about 2,500 institutions. So this is another initiative which really anybody can want to be providing access to register their sources. And ONOS we are providing access to journals, which ISTEM we are providing access to based on their proximity as well as the like to spread awareness about make the payment also on the ISTEM utilized as much as possible. So this is another initiative which actually doing a lot on many fronts is about providing that our researchers are empowered sources. Through ONOS we are providing access to journals. The ambitions of ISTEM we are providing access to research infrastructure. So we really
Thank you to you and Dr. Ajay Sood, who couldn't make it today. We really want to appreciate his efforts in terms of ONOS in providing access and also ISTEM in providing access to research infrastructure. Thanks a lot for all the good work you guys have done in bringing ONOS, which will benefit all of us here. In fact, most of the students across the Indian ecosystem. I think 18 million students will be impacted positively. That's a big thing. A big round of applause for ONOS and the PS's office and also ISTEM in providing access to research infrastructure. Thanks a lot for all the good work you guys have done in bringing ONOS, which will benefit all of us here. In fact, most of the students across the Indian ecosystem. I think 18 million students will be impacted positively. That's a big thing. A big round of applause for ONOS and the PS's office. Thank you so much. Extremely we'll move to Dr. Harsh Jagdish. Yeah, that's where you've been a researcher, you've been a faculty, you've been a technology person, you led the technology at Springer Nature, now publishing world. You wear different hats. So we covered almost all the key areas, from policy, from interventions of PSA to universities and private and medical. In the evolving technology landscape, the role of ethical use of AI in research, I think that's what a lot of panelists here, technology person, as well as even audience would be excited to know. What is that we can use? So the AI is evolving very fast. All the key areas, generative AI is moving from interventions of PSA to now what is ethical use of AI in medical? In the evolving technology landscape, the role of ethical use of AI in research, I think that's what a lot of panelists here, as well as even audience, would be excited to know. What is that we can use? Because AI is evolving very fast. Generative AI is moving very fast. Now, what is ethical use of AI in research?
The big ideas and the big problems that we are solving here in healthcare, in before I talk about technology, AI and how technology can really play a huge part, the impact it's making on as a technologist, that's what I'm very, very interested about talking about that. Initiatives but like I want to say that I'm pretty impressed. So I'm very, very hearing everything that's happening here, the big ideas and the big problems that we are solving here, so I see how the research in space exploration and technology. So absolutely impressed, and climate change, Springer Nature, we are very happy with our platforms, with our brands, the big funding that's coming and the big initiatives like really ONOS support researchers here in the research ecosystem. So I'm very, very impressed to see this. This is why we are running I see this from a distance. I have a global role, so I see how the research getting on a bus and actually going to institutions and meeting absolutely impressed, and as Springer Nature, we are very happy with our platforms, with our India's journey to becoming global BMC, to really support researchers here in the research technology and AI will be a net this is why we are running the India Research Conclave, working closely with the government. We're spending $3 trillion on a bus and actually going to institutions and meeting researchers and actually getting it spent in an effective way that research can drive impact in India's journey to becoming. I think it's going to be a huge challenge, and I think technology and AI will play a significant part. Technology and AI, how will it have an impact on researchers? I mean, we've seen AI being applied in things like AlphaFold. We're spending $3 trillion to accelerate research at a fundamental level. But I think AI will also help research in an effective way to stay on top of can drive impact. Because there is so much of research a huge challenge, and there's so many data sets that are getting published, significant so many protocols and how will it have an impact on researchers? I mean, we've seen AI being applied, and AI will help researchers connect to accelerate research at a fundamental level. But I think AI will also help researchers to connect to stay on top of their research to what's happening globally. because there is so much of research that's getting published, so many data sets that are getting published, so many protocols and methods that are getting published, and it's going to be more and more open. Research that's evolving. AI will help. I think it will also help researchers to communicate their research, how research in a way that it can actually reach. It will help researchers to connect their work and their research to what's happening globally. Wanting to focus more time on research and reduce the barriers to access, make it easy, not having enough time to read or publish research, but AI can actually research that's evolving. Make that very, I think it will also help researchers to communicate their research. For us as a publisher, I think AI plays a significant part in ensuring research integrity. Frank, research integrity is something that we are wanting to focus more time on research and create trust and not wanting to publish, and AI plays not having enough time to read, so it's going to be a net positive overall, and AI and technology make that very, very simple research and accelerate the time that publisher. I think AI plays a significant part in ensuring research integrity. Very, very excited research integrity.
Thank you so much. You touched upon the $3 trillion globally and how do we actually benefit out of it, and how technology can enable the overall process. Thanks for your inputs. Before I think we are running short of time. Before we close the panel, any panelist would like to share any few thoughts as a, yeah, ma'am.
Very, very excited about it.
Thank you so much. You touched upon the $3 trillion globally and how do we actually benefit out of it, and how technology can enable the overall process. Thanks for your inputs. Before I think we are running short of time. Before we close the panel, any panelist would like to share any few thoughts as a, yeah, ma'am.
From the research perspective, what kind of model? Thank you very much. So that I know we are running out of time, but I could not resist. I know that SDGs is very important. India,
absolutely, ma'am.
India and the improvement of environment and India, so that has shown considerable progress. So I wanted to say something about SDGs from the research perspective. 71 in 2023, what kind of model? But if you look at India's rank globally, India ranks 109 out of 156 countries. India, and therefore, even though the index is risen, that has shown considerable progress. Attainment of one of the goals. So what we really need is 71 and some new approach, some novel approach. But if you look at India's rank globally, India ranks 109 out of 156 countries. And therefore, even though the index has risen by, it is still sluggish in terms of public attainment of those goals. So what we really when we talk about sustainable, some new approach, some novel development research from social perspective, economic perspective, and environmental perspective. And for this, that's what we say are the 3 pillars of my own works, and also there is. But this is still giving us very sluggish growth when published in 2024 with similar thoughts. We need to, when we talk about something else, we have to understand that about development, start realizing that they have to behave in a particular way and will not be able to achieve the target. That's what we say are the 3 pillars of transformation at the individual level. But this is still giving us very sluggish growth, making people responsible for the decisions of what we need to add is something else. We have to understand that is until values start realizing that they have to behave in a particular aligned, we will not be able to challenge and goals. So what we need is a transformation. We can also add spiritual and intuitive, making people aware, making people responsible. So if I add all this to what the 3 pillar version of sustainable development and beliefs, so that's all the external dimension of aligned. So this is the global challenge and the goal dimension of development. So what is we can also add spiritual and intuitive consciousness and development, which will, so if I add all the effort for the external dimension, the inner dimension of sustainable development, that you have that's all the external challenges of development. So this is your inner dimension. Make sure that happens. What this will give you is a holistic approach at individual level. Every individual thinks that then you can take bolster the efforts of the external dimension, the inner dimension, global level. Because you think that in attitude of a person, the challenges of the globe, it will impact your inner dimension throughout the planet. So it will ensure that well-being of the planet. So from what happens individual level, every individual thinks that then you can take it to the they have emphasized the importance of localized international level, global level. If you invert that attitude of a person would have a pyramid of individual communities throughout the planet, as it will ensure well-being of the planet. You divide India into many communities. What happens then is each One thing the Niti Aayog has done is they have to do something. They have emphasized the importance of the localized SDGs. You can transform the nation. Convert that very important point of Niti Aayog pyramid of individual communities. So, as a community, I apply to each community. You divide India into many communities, and each community realizes that they have to do the headquarters of the which is in alignment with the SDGs. You can transform. They also have a very important model for the economy, their own communities. So, out of my own interest, I outline all those communities, agriculture, communities in Jalbagh, water quality, air quality, innovation, human values, the headquarters. So, I did a property mapping and my work is and they also have a model for the economy, their own community. I can align it with the SDGs. So where they look at all of the sectors, agriculture. What I want to say is that water quality, air quality, innovation, intersection of so I did a complete value system and the role of communities and advancing every activity of this can be generalized. I can align it with the can be applied to other communities and this is just one community. What I want to say is that which are value based, kind of have a kind of intersection of inner dimension on the value system. One more thing I want to say is the role of communities and this whole approach is also aligned can be generalized. The Honorable Prime Minister can be applied to a lifestyle for sustainable development. One community, because if you look at lifestyle for sustainable values, that relies on individuals and communities' behavior and infrastructure. That they have to change their behavior. Is that this whole approach is also aligned with religious or the Honorable Prime Minister's approach and lifestyle behavior towards spiritual consciousness. Because if you look at lifestyle for the impact, that relies on individuals that impact behavior a bit bigger. That they have to change their behavior. Already is advocated the only national level. If you look at the religious or the spiritual modality for making you add to that behavior, you add skills can be attained naturally and bolster the impact while the Niti Aayog has said what on that impact maybe is a bit bigger, but impose values superimpose already is advocated at the national level.
Sure, I think that's a very interesting input. In fact, we would love to go through your book and of course Professor Premsaran Satsangi Sahab and Dr. Dheer's references around transformation at an individual level, touching on consciousness and holistic development. Probably we can circulate to our audience also. With this, I think we have a paucity of time. Thank you so much. It's very interesting for this lovely panel and all the panelists making it today at AIMS. And we wish you all the audience and individual level and also use these resources and inputs as you've probably circulated to our audience to the research community and empowering the research community. Thank you everyone. We have lovely interacting with all of you. Thank you so much for this lovely panel and all the panelists making it today at AIMS, and we wish you all the audience a great luck and also use these resources and inputs as you add to the research community and empowering the research community. Thank you everyone. It's a lovely interacting with all of you.
I would now request the moderator for this session, Mr. Venkatesh Sarvasiddhi, to kindly felicitate the panel. Dr. Ananya Mukherjee, Vice
we touched upon crucial aspects like sustainability, funding
challenges, and ONS, and how technology is slowly evolving. I would now request the moderator for this session, Mr. Venkatesh Sarvasiddhi, to kindly felicitate the panelist. Dr. Ananya Mukherjee, Director, Higher Education, Niti Aayog. Harsh Dagdishan, Chief Publishing Officer, Springer Nature. Dr. Shashank Shah, Director, Higher Education, Niti Aayog. Dr. Pami Dua, Senior Professor and former Director, Delhi School of Economics. Harsh Dagdishan, Chief Publishing Officer, Springer Nature. Ramya Haridasan, Scientist, D, Office of the Principal Scientific Advisor, Professor and former Director, Delhi School of Economics. Saumak Ray Chaudhary, Vice Chancellor, Ashoka University. Ramya Haridasan, Scientist, D, Office of the Principal Scientific Advisor. Dr. Govind Makharia, Associate Dean Research, AIIMS, New Delhi. Saumak Ray Chaudhary, Vice Chancellor, Ashoka University. Thank you, everyone. Dr. Govind Makharia, Associate Dean Research, AIIMS, New Delhi. Moving on to the next panel discussion, which the topic says Women in Research, Catalyst for Change. Women researchers have been driving groundbreaking discoveries, yet they face challenges like representation, funding, and leadership opportunities. How do we break barriers and create an
Moving on to
inclusive,
the next
thriving
panel
research
discussion,
environment? Which today the
for
topic
this
says
panel,
Women
we
in
have an
Research,
inspiring
Catalyst
panel of
for Change,
experts
who will share their
Women
experience,
researchers have
insights,
been
and
driving
solutions to empower women
groundbreaking
in
discoveries.
research. Yet they face
The
challenges
session will
like
be moderated by
representation,
Dr.
funding,
Deepika Mishra,
and
additional
leadership
professor,
opportunities.
Division of Oral
How do we
Pathology
break
and
barriers
Microbiology,
and create an
AIIMS, New Delhi.
inclusive,
As
thriving
panelists,
research
we have
environment?
Dr. Pallavi Shukla,
Today,
Department
for
of
this
Preventive
panel,
Oncology,
we have an inspiring
AIIMS,
panel
New
of
Delhi.
experts who will share their
Dr.
experience,
Aanchal
insights,
Kakkar,
and
Department of
solutions to
Pathology,
empower
AIIMS,
women
New
in
Delhi.
research. Dr.
The
Kritika
session will be
Rangaranjan,
moderated by
Department
Dr.
of
Deepika
Radio
Mishra,
Diagnosis,
additional
AIIMS, New
professor,
Delhi. Division of Oral Pathology,
Dr.
and
Sujata
Microbiology, AIIMS, New
Mohanty,
Delhi.
Professor,
As
DBT
panelists, we have Dr. Pallavi
Stem Cell
Shukla,
Research,
Department
AIIMS,
of
New Delhi.
Preventive Oncology, AIIMS. We
New
have
Delhi.
Dr. Radhika Tandon,
Dr.
Chief,
Aanchal
RP,
Kakkar, Department of
RPC
Pathology,
Center,
AIIMS, New Delhi.
Dr.
Over to you,
Kritika
Dr.
Rangaranjan,
Deepika Mishra.
Department of Radio Diagnosis, AIIMS, New Delhi. Dr. Sujata Mohanty, Professor, DBT Center of Excellence for Stem Cell Research, AIIMS, New Delhi. We have Dr. Radhika Tandon, Chief, RPC Center, AIIMS, New Delhi. Over to you, Dr. Deepika Mishra.
So, a very good afternoon to one and all, and it's my privilege to moderate this particular session and also interact with the leading women scientists and researchers as well as clinicians who are leading the space of research as well as healthcare in the scientific landscape, especially at AIIMS when we talk about and it's my privilege the women in research catalyst for change in India's session scientific and also interact with the leading women scientists and researchers as well as clinicians. We are running short of time. Who are leading this space. Let me just start as well as healthcare questions the scientific landscape. So, introducing at AIIMS when we talk about Dr. Pallavi. So, the women Pallavi Shukla, just to tell a brief introduction about her. She's additional professor and also leading a lot of research in the public health capacity in the area of preventive oncology. Let me just start with dealing with a lot of quick public health related research. Which includes public capacity building. She deals with just to the research wherein she is also working very closely with frontline workers in the public health capacity, frontline healthcare workers in the area of preventive oncology. What we have seen is that with a lot of work in preventive oncology often involves engaging with diverse communities to assess and address cancer risk, which is again her domain. She is also just wanted to ask you a very short frontline workers, your experience. So what are the primary challenges you face in translating research findings into effective public health interventions, particularly engaging with diverse communities areas, especially we see that and address cancer in India, which is again her domain. So
thank you
just
so much,
wanted to
Dr.
ask you a very short
having me here today.
Your experience. So what are the primary challenges you face in translating research findings into effective public health interventions, particularly in
actually congratulate on the place that we are already here. The way more than 120 crore Indians are having me at an advantage position right now because the primary healthcare facility has reached to that level. I would just like to, so if you look at the geospatial mapping of the Health and Wellness Center, actually congratulate to the level of less than 2 kilometer distance for anybody to 120 more than 120 crore Indians are. So we are at a very good position right now. Advantage position right now because the primary healthcare facility has reached to that level. Right now, the framework, if you look at the geospatial mapping of the health and wellness center, infrastructure, we have reached to the level of there are certain 2 kilometer distance issues. Anybody to sure that everything will be sorted out to utilize soon. So we have a very good framework of public health system in India right now. Now, but what are the challenges? Lot of more when we talk about challenges, right now the framework is all set. The positions are yet vacant. Lot of infrastructure. So if we want to translate everything that we do in our workforce issues, and we want to take it to the public health level, to the last mile, very good framework. We still face many challenges. So first and foremost challenges. Now, what are the challenges? There is when we talk about challenges, to name a few. Everything is so earmarked when the researchers plan their studies. If we want to translate everything that we do in cancer, so this research ideal setting, and we want to take it to the public health level, to the last mile, actually impacts we still face many challenges. The functioning of the ground level workforce. They have to deal with so many disaggregated systems, and to take it to the community. So there's only one frontline health worker, that is ASHA worker. So everything boils down to that, to cancer. So this research is, so she has to work absolutely on cancer, and she has to work to that extent that there are multiple programs happening. The functioning of the ground which is entering the data. They have to deal with so many disaggregated systems, and to whenever we are planning any research which has to reach the community level, it should actually come from the community. So whenever we are planning any research, we should not forget the impact that it is going to have on the community. Also, we should take into consideration how this will be implemented at that level. Everything is a very good research once we are sitting in these kinds of rooms. But when research to take it to the community, we really need to understand how it is going there. From the community. So whenever we are planning any research, problem that we should not forget because there is a lot of things happening in the community, and nothing is. We should take into consideration how this will be implemented at that level. Working together. Everything is a very good research once we are sitting in these kinds of rooms. Very good public health system and very good tertiary care system. But the marriage has yet not happened. So that kind of thing has to be really worked on. We face is because we are still struggling with happening, and nothing is primary and the tertiary level facilities. Nothing is and then working together. When we are talking about research, we really need to understand and put our investment into the sustainability of that model. We cannot just work on a standalone research study. That kind of thing has to be really worked on once the researcher is gone from the area. So that sustainability and the scalability has to be there when we are planning our research. So these are some of the things that we talking about research. We really need to understand and put our investment into the sustainability of that model. We cannot just work on a standalone research study with no impact once the researcher is gone from the area. So that sustainability, that scalability has to be there when we are planning our research. So these are some of the things that we
is the professor in charge for the stem cell facility. That's one of the kind state-of-art services which have started at AIIMS. So we've been instrumental in establishing good manufacturing practices, facility for clinical grade stem cell production. So what were the significant challenges you encountered during this process? Is the professor in charge for the stem cell facility to advance regenerative medicine research at AIIMS, which have started at AIIMS. So you've been instrumental in establishing good manufacturing practices, facility for clinical grade stem cell production. So what were the significant challenges you encountered during this process?
So we need to first accept that we are the catalyst for the change which India deserves, isn't it? And as you said, that stem cell is a very innovative and very specific area of research. Panel discussion. So I associate with stem cell research, and also very glad to be part research. So we need to first accept that we are the catalyst for the change which India deserves. Most of them are in R&D, isn't it? Just to tell you that GMP, which she has talked about, is a good manufacturing stem cell is a very innovative because stem cells are just like area of research. So when you manufacture drugs, so we need to manufacture stem cells for therapeutic and research purposes. So when we started our journey to make GMP, as per the regulatory guidelines, R&D, if you want to tell you that GMP, which she has talked about, is a good manufacturing practices. The quality control stem cells are just like the pharmaceutical drug. So when you manufacture drugs, I come from the science background, from the biological background. I never had any experience of making. So when we started our journey to make GMP, as per the regulatory guidelines, really a journey for me to really read about the GMP guidelines, and I became half engineer. Quality control as because GMP is infrastructure. So it has nothing to do with the science which I was dealing with patients. I never had any experience of making. It was all about making particular facility which can make your product safe. Really read about safe for human use. The GMP guidelines, sterile. I became batch-to-batch variation because GMP is infrastructure. So it has nothing to do with the science which I was dealing with patients. Like what should be the air quality? What should be the air handling unit? Making particular. What should be the humidity, the pressure, everything. Make your product safe. So these are some of the challenges for human use which I never anticipated. Sterile. Batch-to-batch and we were the first one to make GMP for biological products. I don't like not an aspirin or a vaccine, but biological. Like because stem cells are biological air quality. What should be the air handling unit? Although they have certain chemistry, humidity, the pressure, everything. So these are some of the challenges which I never anticipated. I can go to some center and make GMP. And we were the first one to make GMP for biological products. The EMA guidelines, the EU guidelines, what they have biological because stem cells are biological entity. The challenges, they are not a chemistry. It also taught you that how chemistry to much you can expand and you can gain the knowledge. We didn't have any as a woman also give a boost to my confidence center and make GMP. And another thing is the support structure the AIMS has, the EMA guidelines, the EU gives you that freedom they have explore and take that leap the challenges no one has gone before. But it also like taught you that these were the challenges much you can expand and you into the area where nobody has gone. And as a woman also it have confidence, a boost to my confidence. And another thing is the support structure
those
the
are
AIMS
actually
has.
very useful
It gives
points,
you that
especially for the young researchers,
and
doctors
take that leap
who actually
where
enter
no
into
one
a
has
new
gone
area,
before,
and now
something like
we see a lot of
these were the
crosstalk
challenges
happening between technology and
foray into the
doctors.
area where nobody has gone.
I think so that will be
to
very
have
useful for them as well.
and move forward.
Just coming to Dr. Achit Kakkar, she's the one
actually
we
very
see
useful
how
points,
very
especially for the
dynamically
young
she has started with the head and neck pathology in her department area, and now we see a lot in the research and healthcare happening between technology confident decision making and motivation, which she always sort of we all imbibe from her. Just coming to Dr. Achit Kakkar, I just wanted to have one of your insights, like how can women in these fields she has started with the head and neck pathology in her department, and what advice would you offer to young female researchers in healthcare? I've seen her striving to become decision makers, motivation, which she always sort of
Thank you, Deepika, for including me in this very interesting panel
I just wanted to have
definitely
of your
confidence
insights, like how
is
can women in
required
these
for young
fields
female researchers
cultivate
to
this
make a certain
confidence, and what
decision.
advice would you offer
And
to
I think first and
young
foremost,
female
confidence comes
researchers
from gaining
striving
expertise.
to become assertive
So
decision
to young
makers?
researchers, I would say that keep educating yourself, improve yourself
Thank you,
every day
Deepika,
in
for
your field
including
of
me in this
interest,
very
because as
interesting
you gain
panel discussion.
expertise, you are going to be the one who has the most knowledge about a certain topic in a room. That is how you're going to gain confidence. Secondly, I would say that you should surround yourself by a support group of peers as well as mentors who are always there to provide you with insight as well as feedback which you can use to improve yourself. So these two things are extremely important. Thirdly, I would say that it is important to step out of your comfort zone and volunteer for leadership roles or for projects, participate in projects which are taking you outside of your comfort zone, because that is going to help you to grow and gain confidence when you're able to achieve things that you did not think you would be capable of.
Thanks, Dr. Achal, and I'm sure many of the young researchers being in this room are gaining all these points, and will definitely help them. Coming back to Dr. Pallavi, so one basic thing which we always think, because you have been the one who's always looking into working very closely with female frontline healthcare workers or policy makers and researchers. So how do you basically look into collaborating with them, and how do you foster these collaborations to enhance cancer prevention and early detection strategies, which is very important right now in Indian scenario?
So continuing with what Dr. Anchal was saying, I would just want to make one more point here, that I consider myself as to be the powerful gender here, because it actually gives me, it actually helps me a lot when I'm doing this public health work. Why I'm telling you this, especially in the cancer area. India is still having the most common cancers as the female cancers. So breast cancer, the lip and oral cavity cancers, the cancer of cystic cervix. So both, I mean, all of them more common in the female genders. And so once we are actually talking to the female, the beneficiaries are female, the providers are female, and even the grassroots level workers, they are female. So actually it makes me at a very, powerful position right now. So and when we are talking about the frontline health workers, at majority of locations where females are the frontline health workers, they have actually shown a better result. I won't say, I mean, no offense to the male gender here, but yes, because females have been the ones who are vulnerable, yet not coming up front for their care, especially when I'm talking about the preventive care. So they always take a back seat. So pulling them out of their comfort zone. So these frontline health workers, the ASHA workers, the ANMs, and these people are actually doing a lot of work in this area. Now we are not having that tough situation for females now. Though it is a long way to go, I would still say. But yes, we have been working a great deal with these female population now. And they are coming out of their comfort zone, and it is very nice to see them coming up for the preventive strategies. So right now, what we had, last month we had an NCD campaign wherein everybody was up for their blood pressure monitoring, their blood sugar monitoring. And because the cancer screening things are yet not in place in the public domain now, but I am seeing a very positive change there. So very soon they will also. Now, what do these frontline female workers need? So they also need a suitable environment to work with, because they are not permanent employees. They are volunteer workers. They are working beyond their work hours, whatever. I mean, they are housewives who are working extra time in the health domain. So they also need a suitable kind of environment. Second is the ANMs, who are actually the permanent workers, but still they have to struggle with a lot of things, the finances and moving their way up through the public health system. So this kind of peer review meetings and these things will actually help them. So it's a kind of supportive supervision that they will need from their peers and also from their superiors. So that kind of enabling environment, and yeah, that's it.
Yeah, thanks, Dr. Pallavi. Quickly, Madam, I wanted to, we all understand we are sitting with Springer Nature team, and publishing is vital for the progress in regenerative medicine as well. So yet the process is quite lengthy and demanding. So could you share the challenges you have encountered in getting your research published? And especially as a woman in science, have you faced any unique obstacles during this journey?
I think this will be unique to India and maybe unique to the area in which I am working. So it is stem cells, tissue engineering, and regenerative medicine. So we don't have many so-called good journals in India. So we need to go for international journals. What I faced, number one, is the publishing charges, the APC, which again will be taken care. Second is like maybe how Western world looks at India in terms of giving preference. I have found that because now I am on the other side. I'm also the reviewer to so many other international journals. So when I saw a paper or a work of similar area as mine, I can see that those are getting published with much ease as compared to being from India. I cannot discriminate in terms of male, female, but there is, but maybe because now we have reached to a little bit a senior level, it is much easier, but initially, yes, there were some challenges in terms of like proving yourself or your work. It was a challenge for being an Indian researcher, I will say, not as a woman. But I think as a woman, we are much better in writing and completing the task on time. Whatever reviewer says that you have to modify these points, we are much quicker than other. This I'm saying, keeping my colleagues in mind, but also my students and my research team. If I give this task to a boy versus a girl, I'll give maybe 1 reminder to the girl and I might give 3 reminders to the boys. But maybe this is now getting even again when you are mature and you handle them with care. So this is my observation, yes.
Thank you, ma'am, and I completely relate to it. So, and now we have a chat GPT as a third. So coming to Dr. Achal, I've seen your profession demands intense focus and extended working hours. I've seen her leaving very, very late in the nights, just finishing with her reporting, and continuous learning, which she's doing all the time. So during your periods of overwhelming workload, what strategies do you employ to stay motivated and passionate about your work? So in short, what keeps you going in spite of so many challenges around? Yeah.
So I think as women, we are more likely to face more overwhelming situations as compared to males, especially when we are faced with multiple deadlines and we also have our family pressures to deal with. So I find that it's very helpful to make to-do lists where you can prioritize the tasks that you need to do and delegate the tasks which are not high priority to people who work with you in your team. Delegation is extremely important. It really helps me to focus on the high priority areas. Even among those, I find that if you try to break them down into smaller individual tasks, it tends to become a little less overwhelming. You're able to deal with small packets of work at a time, and it gives you a sense of accomplishment when you finished each one of those, and then you can head towards the the larger goal. It's very important for us to break down the time that we have for work, for family, and also personal time for ourselves. I find that I really need personal time for myself where I can focus on my own interests like exercise or hobbies, which really helps me to clear my mind, and then it gives me a clearer focus on what I need to do later. And I think for me, the most important thing here is to always retain that broad vision of what I'm trying to accomplish and see the broader goal. And it's not just about how much I need to publish or even all the patients whose reporting I need to do. In addition to that, you have your entire team. You have the research fellows who work under you. You have your thesis students, and they are relying on you to complete their work for them. They need to complete their theses. They need publications as well. And so all of that just helps you stay motivated when you have that broad overview that these are all the things I need to accomplish, not just for myself, but for those who work under me as well. And that generally helps to stay motivated, I guess, yeah.
So that was a very, I would say, inspirational message to all of us. And with that, I would like to thank each of our panelists for sharing such powerful insights and experiences. And your journeys truly reflect the spirit of this session and how women in research are shaping the scientific future in India. So thank you all for this enriching conversation. Over to you.
Thank you, everyone. I would just like to close this panel with a very interesting quote by Swati Piramal, who is a leading Indian scientist and businesswoman. She said that when women enter the lab, they don't just conduct experiments, they change the equation. With that, I would now request our moderator, Dr. Deepika Mishra, to please give the mementos to all the panelists. I would request Dr. Pallavi Shukla, from the Department of Preventive Oncology, AIMS, New Delhi. Dr. Achal Kakkar from Department of Pathology, AIIMS, New Delhi. Dr. Sujanta Mohanty, Professor at the Stem Cell Facility at AIIMS, New Delhi.
Thank you all for staying late. Thank you. This shows support to women.
As we come to the close of today's insightful discussions, it's time to reflect on the key takeaways and look ahead to the path forward. To deliver the closing note, it's my honor to invite a distinguished leader, Ms. Joyce Lorigan, Group Head of Corporate Affairs, Springer Nature. With a vast experience in corporate affairs, strategic communications, and advocacy, she has been a strong voice in driving impactful change across the research and publishing landscape. Please join me in welcoming Ms. Joyce Lorigan.
Hello, well, we are coming to a close, and I just wanted to say again thank you on behalf of my Springer Nature colleagues at AIIMS for hosting today, and thank you all for staying with us. It's been a lot of information today. You've done very well. I was driving to Noida this morning. Frank mentioned earlier that we have a Macmillan Education business. Hopefully some of you learnt English through Macmillan Education. I can see some smiles. And I was passing, there was a big billboard on the side of the road, and I was looking at the taxi driver was going quite fast, but I looked at it as it went past. I didn't know what the advert was for, but the words on the billboard really struck me as a kind of a very good idea of what it feels like to be in India at the moment, and also to listen to the optimism and ambition in the room today. And what it said on the billboard was, "We didn't come this far just to come this far." And I get that real sense of momentum in the room today. And if there's a message we can leave you with at all, is that we really want to be on that journey with you as Springer Nature. And on the slide here, you can see some examples of the ways that we can do that with you. On the left-hand side of the slide, you've heard some of these things already, but just to summarize, we have 200,000 Indian researchers who've published as Springer Nature. So nearly 250,000 researchers publishing with us today. And also we are collaborating with 1,700 Indian institutions. Now I know India is a very big place, but still that's a big number. And obviously with ONOS, we've heard a lot about ONOS today. That expands access to over 2,000 Springer Nature journals, and again 3 million articles. Some good examples of how we're working closely with the Indian ecosystem. And then our priorities, you heard Frank at the beginning of the day talk about these, really are open access, research integrity, which Stephen talked about, and of course digital publishing. And just to give you a couple examples of those, in India on open access, the download of open access articles grew by almost a third between 2019 and 23. So we're seeing a huge uplift in open access. And then on the integrity side, we have RISE, the Research Integrity in Science and Education, which is our first pan-Indian integrity initiative, all about enhancing research practices in India. And on the right-hand side, one of our key values at Springer Nature is partnership, and we see ourselves very much as part of the ecosystem. We work very much alongside all of you. And again, there's some examples of this on the right side, whether it's about interdisciplinary, never an easy word to say in English, even if you are English, interdisciplinary collaboration. And we heard the panel talk about the importance of SDGs and joining up different disciplines. Partnering, obviously, with the Ministry of Education on the promotion of research integrity and open access. And we've signed 7 fully open access agreements with universities in India. And there's just a few other points, again, picking up on some of the things that you've heard today. SDGs, a lot of information about that on the panel. This is something very close to my heart. I'm head of sustainability at Springer Nature. 1 million SDG articles were published. You heard that earlier on today. But and it may be an interesting fact for you in India, over 30% of Springer Nature publications from India last year alone were in support of the SDGs, which is a fantastic number. And also we heard one of our panelists just talk about how important it is that researchers themselves, we as people are passionate about SDGs, and we're really lucky across Springer Nature. We have very, very passionate employees in this area. We have a thing called the Green Impact Network, which in lots of countries is very big amongst our Indian colleagues, and there's lots and lots of initiatives that they run throughout the year, and you can see some of the results in the slide behind me. We've also partnered with, in this case, Shiv Nadar University and Pandit Neendayal Energy University just recently in a sustainability conclave. So lots of events to keep the focus on SDGs. And this is a very appropriate point, just given the panel was all about women. We want to make sure that there's broader voices inside our own company. And we have lots of people networks, so SN Parents, SN Women. There are about 8 networks across the organisation, but also, most importantly, outside the community as well. And again, you're seeing some examples on the slide. I won't go through all of them, but for example, we've just been hearing about women, female researchers. We have a number of awards that we run. One of them, which is a really big one, we run with Sony, and that's a Women in Technology Award, which is the biggest award in its sector. But there's other partnerships with companies like L'Oreal that we work with as well. And also 30% of Indian authored Springer Nature papers and now have female lead authors, which is up from a fifth 10 years ago, so moving in the right direction. And the Her Research, Our Future initiative with the Ministry of Education is a great example of how we want to keep that at the forefront. I'm looking at my panelists over here to make sure the voices of young women researchers across India are heard. And it's nice to be recognised from some of those DEI activities, and we won an award recently for Best Organisation for Women in 2025. So, enough about us maybe, more about the early careers researchers that I can see in the audience. We're very, very eager to collaborate with you. And there's a number of ways that we can do that. Nature masterclasses that you heard about earlier on, there's a really good training platform on there for young researchers. We have the RISE summits, which focus on research integrity, that are open for you to attend. And then we also have a full early career researcher program. And that's all about bridging the gap between researchers, libraries, and ourselves, publishers. One of the things which features on the Indian bus tour is the Student Ambassador Initiative. So we'd encourage you to sign up if you're interested. And that's really about creating researcher-led communities that provide young researchers with a platform to advance research and innovation. And we've already got 130 research ambassadors and 50 professors covering 35 institutions. And hopefully with the next bus tour, we'll increase that number again. So enough about us and more about you. How can you engage with us, those people in the room or listening to this online? Did you know that only less than 5% of Indian researchers are recruited on the editorial boards of reputed international journals? It's a very small percentage given the scale of Indian research. So why not come and join us as an editorial board member and bring in your expertise to our journals? We'd be really interested to hear from you. Why not become a student ambassador? I just talked about that, and become part of this early career researcher program. I'm sure the Indian team would be happy to give you more information on how you can do that. Or join our in-person workshops and our training webinars, which we run on things like open access and research integrity. Stephen mentioned one of those earlier on today. You can also stay connected with us, obviously, on our social media channels and follow what we're up to and engage with us that way. Again, we'd love to hear from you. So that was a quick recap from me. I know it's been quite a long day, and again, thank you for your attention. But you know, Springer Nature has been around for 180 years, and we're not going anywhere. So we're looking forward to collaborating with you further in the years to come. Thank you for listening.
Thank you, Joyce, for highlighting Springer Nature's commitment towards advancing discovery and our work in the space of SDGs. Moving towards the closure of this event, I would now request Dr. Deepika Mishra to please come up on stage and deliver the vote of thanks.
On behalf of AIMS Delhi, I extend my heartfelt gratitude to our esteemed guests, distinguished speakers, panelists, all the participants for being a part of today's event. Special thanks to AIMS administrative heads, especially our director sir, Govind Makaria sir and Tandon sir for this invaluable guidance in ensuring seamless execution of this event. I sincerely appreciate the contribution of our visionary speakers like Dr. P.K. Banerjee, Dr. Gangadhar. We had so many insights that have enriched our collective understanding. My deepest gratitude also goes to our industry partners from Springer Nature, including Frank Peters, Venkatesh, Stephen, Harsh, and Joyce, an entire Springer Nature team. I would like to acknowledge our exemplary contribution of our panelists. Sincere thanks to Dr. Shashank Shah, Dr. Ananya Mukherjee for their expert perspectives, as well as women panelists from AIMS Delhi, Dr. Pallavi, Dr. Achal Kakkar, Professor Sujata. Two of the other panelists, Dr. Kritika and Dr. Radhika, joined us, but then they also had a lot of commitments from the patients, so they had to leave. So it was I'm really thankful for sparing their valuable time. Lastly, I extend my sincere appreciation to the backstage teams from Springer Nature and AIMS Delhi, whose hard work and commitment have been instrumental in making this conclave a success. Thank you all. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Deepika Mishra. In the words of Nelson Mandela, education is the most powerful weapon which you can use to change the world. Let us carry forward this knowledge and ideas which we shared today as we continue to push boundaries and drive impactful research. Joyce already mentioned about our ongoing student research ambassador program, and we are happy that we are fully supported by research ambassadors also here. If we have them here in the room, can they raise their hands, please? They have been very instrumental in making this event a big success. Thank you once again, everyone, and we look forward to seeing you at the future events. I would request everyone to come here on the stage for a group photo. Can I request teams from Springer Nature and AIMS to be here, please? And also the student ambassadors. Yes, also the student ambassadors, please.
I would request AIMS team to please join us for the group photograph, Bharat.